What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
What is up? It's Dynasty Points. Look, we are grateful for every download, like, follow, subscribe. It means a lot to us. We are enjoying an insane Linsanity run. Thanks to everyone listening and downloading. You can leave your comments below. Let us know what you do and don't like. You all have a voice, especially if you are in the Discord with us talking Dynasty. I mean, that community is growing every single day. Without you guys, there's no us. So shout out and much love to you all. With that being said, week 2, I mean, we're actually seeing trends here. We have seen some big overcorrections that we're going to talk about. We have some stuff that we need to either believe it or not and know how to act accordingly. That's what we are doing today. We are also going to check back in on 5 backfields that we think we have seen some shifts and have a little bit more information, and maybe they'll be just a little bit less annoying. Don't worry, I didn't include Denver because I didn't want another half-hour discussion on that terrible, god-awful backfield that I want no part of. So we're going to cruise past that. Of course, I am your host tonight. I am Thomas Tipple. You can find me at El Nostra Thomas. Joining me, we have the full crew this week. We have Jacob Sanderson at Jacob Sanderson, Lucas Gilbert at L Gilbert FF, and Ryan Heath at Ryan J _ Heath. Full team. And as we have been doing over the last couple of weeks, I want a quick take from week 2 from everyone. Just what did we observe? What do we feel? How are we vibing? What are our teams like? I'll kick it off with Jacob.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote about this right in the immediate aftermath of week 1. And I mean, my takeaway was kind of just depressing. Like I just listed like a bunch of different reasons why NFL games suck right now. And I will try and, if you want to check that out, if you want to just be depressed and have like the, you know, if you want to listen to the, what was it? Someone played something. They had a tweet with like an injured roster. They said someone plays Something in the Way by Nirvana. If you want like your like self-harm music read along, go check that out. Think about thing. This is the offshoot of that, which is I do think what we've seen from the Saints, from the Vikings, from all these supposed scams that I talk about all the time, is that it is possible to beat the quote unquote cover 2 shell. There are teams out there who are trying to not just win, but to win convincingly and to try to use the regular season, not just to get from 1-0 to 2-0, but to try and measure themselves up to push the limits of what they can do, trying to actually build a program, build a contender. And I think that this gap between haves and have-nots is getting so stark, right? Teams are having to test their mettle against defenses that are taking the easy things away more and more, that I just don't think that we're going to have that much longer where NFL owners are willing to withstand the Shane Waldrons of the world, that are willing to be accepting of mediocrity. I hope that they look at what teams like the Seahawks did, right? Where they go and pluck an offensive coordinator out of college and say, oh, they're finding creative ways to actually scheme the ball into their best players' hands, to play into what the defense wants to take away, but do it anyways, to be the aggressor, to set the tone. That's what I want to see teams do more. Maybe it's not going to happen in this year, but I think that there's an accelerationist, night is darkest before the dawn element to where the gap between the teams that are willing to set the game of football on their own terms and are willing to play the game that's handed to them is expanding. And hopefully that pushes more and more teams to try and join the ranks of the haves in future years.
I mean, shout out the Saints who are just figuring out how to absolutely dominate everyone they play against. Ryan, quick thoughts.
Yeah, so I wrote about this and touched on this in my 5 Stats to Know article on Fantasy Points that you can go check out. But kind of the biggest trend I'm tracking through the first 2 weeks is the running back position from a fantasy perspective has just been incredible, right? So right now, through 2 weeks, we have 12 running backs that are averaging at least 17 expected fantasy points per game. For those that don't know, that's just kind of an arbitrary metric I like to use for who's like a bell cow every down running back and who isn't, right? Or at least who's scoring like one in fantasy. So we have 12 running backs doing that. last year and the year before, through the first 2 weeks, we only had 6 running backs each year getting that type of workload. So
Crazy.
Really, the every down RB1 type of workload is twice as common right now as we've seen over the past couple of years. The last time it was anywhere close to this through the first few weeks was 2021, which coincidentally is the last time that kind of the elite running back or robust running back strategies in fantasy were actually usable, right? It's the 0 RB guys have been winning a lot the last couple of years. But maybe that won't be the case. Obviously, we have a long way to go, but the early signs kind of showed the pendulum swinging back toward the running game, which I think is really interesting and maybe is related to all the cover 2 stuff that Jacob was touching on.
Ryan, remember there was a big shift in defense structure when everyone wanted smaller linebackers, more nickel, and these offensive coordinators are saying, fine, maybe we will start running it, and it's been effective, even though it is nuking quarterback play. Ryan, you and I talked about that the other day in the DMs, how like everyone is like, receivers are still good, running backs are good, but quarterbacks and tight ends have died this year, and it's really depressing. Lucas?
I'm going to piggyback off of what Ryan said just a little bit. The top 5 most valuable players in fantasy right now are all running backs, and 9 out of the top 12 most valuable players in fantasy are running backs. That just seems absolutely unheard of so far. And as we all expected, Baker Mayfield's the most valuable quarterback. So I don't know. It's just been absolute chaos, it feels like, through 2 weeks. I am here for it. I am loving it, especially whenever my team's not any good. It's really fun to see other fan bases tilt a little bit. So I'm here for it. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, it's definitely been interesting. If I were to have a takeaway, it's that I beat Ryan twice this week in matchups that I played against him. I'll take 1.5 credit because Jacob, you and I absolutely dominated in the Scott Barrett Invitational versus Ryan. And then in the Fantasy Points Listener League, I also dominated Ryan in that league as well. So I am liking how it's shaping up. Aside from that, I will say, like I mentioned, the tight ends are dead. Tight ends, it turns out, need upper tier quarterback
except for
play.
one. Except for one tight end who doesn't need no upper tier quarterback play.
One
tight end to rule them all. One tight end to bind them all.
Technically, he still did get good quarterback play because this week Gardner Minshew looked like a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. That's how bad this is. Lamar Jackson is like 4th in the league in passing. That's how you know passing is broken. Passing is broken in the NFL in like the worst way. We're going to talk about Herbert today. We're going to talk about Lawrence today because we have to. I can't not because I make the content here. But it's down. It's just down across the board. It's really depressing. But Mike Gesicki balled out, so I don't know. Take that for what you will. I don't know, but tight end play right now is definitely looking like it's on the way down. It is scary. We're going to talk about Sam Laporta later because we have something that ties in with that. It's not great. So to me, that's something I've noticed. This was again another year of tight end is deep this year, and it's already dead after 2 weeks. Like, stop saying it because it's never true. It's never accurate. So that's been my quick takeaway. And, if I had to give a bonus, it's that I'm sad the Ravens I know are already going to miss the playoffs because they're 0-2. So, I mean, that's fun. Thanks, Raiders. Love that. Real depressing. We're going to take a small break. We get in, we're jumping right into the Believe It or Not. You're not going to want to miss this. If you're new to this bit, we have been doing this for Full Tilt for a long time. So it's going to be fun to kick it off here in it's going into week 3 now of the 2024 season. So sit tight, quick break. We'll be right back. Look, you dominate your home, office, and family leagues every year. Now it's time to take your game to the next level. The FFPC is the place to play fantasy football every summer. No salary caps, no DFS, new formats to learn, just pure drafting fun that you've always loved. Whether it's mid-season or the beginning of the year, FFPC is home to multiple $1 million grand prizes. If you missed out this year, don't worry. They're going to have you next year. There's massive best ball tournaments, competitive dynasty leagues, and a multitude of exclusive formats. You can even catch Jacob consistently in FFPC drafts, and you can go to try to take his money regularly. Drafts fill every day in the summertime. You're going to want to start your pursuit of millions today. Head to myffpc.com for more information. All right, let's dive in. Let's play Believe It or Not, because there are some things that have happened. Oh, you know what? I lied to you. We're starting with waiver wires. I mean, I totally skipped an entire little bit of a segment here, and that's on me. I am just so excited to get into the next game. What I've asked the guys to do is give us one waiver wire each, and we're going to spend very little time on it because this is Dynasty waiver wires. It's a barren wasteland. So when there is a player, you should go and get them. Jacob, I don't see yours written down, so I do have a bonus if you don't get to him. But I'm going to start with Brenton Strange. 5 first-read targets. He's second on the team in fantasy points per route run. He is at 0.37. He's a second-round pick. He's only behind Evan Ingram, who's on the last year of his contract, who also got injured. I would spend roughly 7% in a tight end premium league. He's not somebody that I would leave on the waiver wire with how much Trevor Lawrence targets tight ends. He should be rostered. Ryan?
Yeah, kind of keeping with the gross tight end pickups. I would take Strange over this one probably, but Greg Dulcich, guys, he might be alive. He did just lead the team with 8 targets, not a lot of production, only caught 3 of them. But hey, his rookie season was pretty productive, top 5 by yards per game since 2014. So if he's out there on any Dynasty waiver wires, I would pick him up.
Yeah, love that. Lucas?
So I misread this. So I'm doing a very quick pivot to Jalen Nailor. I mean, people have talked, or us on our show, we've talked about him for a while. Know that the community at large has been talking about him. If he is still on your waiver wire, please end that. He is available in some of my leagues. I just went and checked just to make sure I wasn't pulling that out of my rear end. So if he is still available, make sure you are picking him up.
I already
Okay.
had
Someone's got to talk about the Chiefs running backs here. I understand
I'm leaving
that
it for you, baby.
Most deep Dynasty leagues, you're probably the only one that's available is Kareem Hunt. But in some shallower, maybe like home Dynasty leagues where there's only 10 bench spots, you might see a few Samaje Perines or Carson Steeles on waivers there. And obviously anybody playing redraft has to consider the Chiefs running backs. My overarching take that I've seen is I think people are way too bearish on the upside of the Chiefs running backs. Seen a lot of people on Twitter saying, don't bother, it's not worth the hassle. I wrote about them extensively in the Hitchhiker's Guide today. I wrote about a little thread up on Twitter. We have seen in every year, basically, that they have had some sort of disruptive event to their backfield. Someone has emerged in the Chiefs backfield and put up 17 points per game over a sustained stretch or higher. That started in Damian Williams in 2018 when Kareem Hunt got arrested. He comes in end of season through the playoffs. 2019, they start off in this weird Damian Williams, LaShawn McCoy committee. Eventually, Williams reestablishes control of that role. He gets a sustained stretch as a feature back, averages up over 20 points per game that season. Then, or at least in that suite of games. Come in 2020, not much happens there. That's the Clyde Le'Veon Bell year. But 2021, that's again where we get Darrell Williams has a stretch at the end of the regular season where he's averaging over 20 points or 18 points per game. We get Jerick McKinnon averaging RB1 totals in the playoffs. Again in 2022, where it goes to Jerick McKinnon in that stretch in the fantasy playoffs when he was the total MVP. Nothing much in 2023 because, of course, they have Isaiah Pacheco. The Chiefs have just typically played differently when they don't have a rusher they want to hand the ball off to. In my opinion, and to be clear, this is not me saying, oh, I'm glad Pacheco's hurt or anything like that. It's terrible for him personally, but I do think it's actually going to be pretty darn good for the Chiefs offense that they're forced to not waste touches on a running back and using the passing game. I expect the PROE to come back up. I expect them to rely on, in my opinion, Perine as that hybrid, going to play all the passing downs, going to play a lot of passing, schemed up stuff on early downs, and be that kind of 8 to 9 carries, 6 to 7 targets type of guy that's consistently been an RB1 in this Andy Reid scheme. Maybe it's not him. Maybe it's Carson Steele, who wound up actually having a really ridiculous receiving production role in college. Maybe they just bring it back with Kareem Hunt. I'm not sure. But I think that in Dynasty waiver wires, obviously you want to spend aggressively to get any of these guys because your chances of getting a starting running back off waivers in Dynasty is like not very high.
Right.
And in redraft, I am prioritizing Perine first, Steele second. but definitely willing to spend up, I think, more than most people are. I think that there's a chance that there's a winner here, and it's a big winner.
Right, and just shout out that we get to use the P line once again.
Absolutely.
Every year we get
use
one
the
more
P line.
year of the P line. It's a good time. I will say Andy Dalton should be added. He should be added. A lot of terrible quarterback play, but it's got to be better than Bryce Young's. Just it's over. I didn't put him on the sheet today, but it's bad. It's not.
We're about to talk about.
grim,
the bar is not very high to be a viable quarterback. Like it's. You look at what the quarterback production is around the league right now, and like Andy Dalton could probably be the quarterback 18. Also, this is probably a good year to be like putting running backs and wide receivers in your super flex. Like it's rough out there. Yeah,
agreed. 100% agreed. It is insane. I am just excited to see what Leggett can do because he earned 7 targets in week 1 and he got nothing, even though they completed. It's like the lowest amount of yardage per the amount of completions they had. Just terrible. So. I'm excited to see what he can do with like a 40% competent quarterback. We'll see what can happen because we've seen what can happen with the 0% competent quarterback. It is just, it's bad, man. I don't know. I feel legitimately bad for him. Anyway, let's talk about, believe it or not, I do want to we're going to catch up on some of these. I mean, everyone has just been so good, in the comments today. Brian Ford wants to know, when do we start the Christian Watson support group meetings?
I won't be attending those. That's for you and Ryan.
We're on height.
Me and Ryan.
Jordan Love comes back. Okay.
Well, I meant Brian and Ryan.
Oh, I was gonna say, damn, don't lump me in there. Is Josh Palmer okay? He was never okay. Awful.
Sorry, I'll say this
terrible.
about Christian Watson. Like, I don't like his archetype of receiver, but there's a lot of his archetype of receiver that I don't like that's having success this year. So if you buy into that, there's like something about this Jameson Williams, Rachaad Shaheed, like zone of wide receivers that's like some sort of hack against this defense where you just like run through the zone or whatever, then maybe that's a good reason to get into a Christian Watson because I think there's some similarities in those profiles. And if there's anything there, I trust LaFleur to use it.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. We got Malik Willis right now. Not great.
Well, yeah, it's pointless now, but this would be
Teddy
the time.
Salad says a good thing I went in 0
really
RB in every league. Yeah, it's really not great. Hollywood Titan says go Vols. So shout out Lucas and Jacob.
Big game this weekend.
Big game. This
is the biggest. Well, no, it's not because we had the Hendon Hooker season like 2 years ago. But this is so I was gonna say it's the biggest false game in a long time, but it's the biggest in like 2 years. But it's still very big.
Hey, it's enough to get excited about. All right, let's talk about believe it or not. I couldn't think of a better way to kick this off than to piss Jacob off as much as I possibly could. But let's talk about Trevor Lawrence, Jacob.
You're trying to force. You're correct.
I'm not trying to force nothing. Okay,
you said that I would be most
is.
ranting about Trevor Lawrence, so you're putting him first on the show sheet.
How could we, Jacob? He's earned it.
Things in your favor.
He's. I'm not juicing. He is doing the juicing for me. He is negative 1.8 PROE. He's the highest turnover throw rate of actual starters. He's a 59 QBR on throws past 10 yards. He's awesome. Past 20 yards. He's 7-11 for 212 and a touchdown with 3 hero throws and 2 turnover-worthy throws for a 137.5 rating. He's unreal when he chucks the ball down the field. He sucks everywhere else. He has an 82.3. He's leaving the pocket early. He's missing wide open receivers in the end zone because he's bailing. I don't know if he's just not trusting the line, not seeing it. I don't know. But Trevor Lawrence, per Greg Rosenthal, is 31st out of 33 in completion percentage over expected. A handful of misses. 8 for 22 when his receivers has less than 3 yards of separation. Negative 16.1% completion rate over expected. Second worst. Scott Barrett over here talking about turnover-worthy throw rate in any game since 2022 with a minimum of 20 passes. It's Lawrence this week above like Cousins, Levis, Wentz, like everything up and down. Trevor Lawrence has been bad at football this year for a guy being drafted in the second round on everything that isn't a deep ball. He's not scoring the points you expect, like everyone else kind of is, but the offense is struggling. It has been bad. And this is just continuing a pattern. And even as much, Jacob is going to go, well, you watch the games. He looks really good.
No, I'm just going to
I don't
read
even
the
know
stats.
if that's the
like he's
case.
14th in EPA per play this year. He's literally in the top half, and he's played against the Cleveland Browns defense in a monsoon. He was 3rd in adjusted EPA in week 1. Like, if you want, I think CPOE is a garbage stat, but if you like CPOE, I can composite it with EPA. And then here's where he is. So he's down at, okay, so when you composite it together, he comes down at 22nd. Here's his group, right? I'll read out everyone from 19 to 25. Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford, Tua Tagovailoa, Trevor Lawrence, Lamar Jackson, Jordan Love, Dak Prescott. Like, a lot of good quarterbacks in that range. I don't know,
QBR
2 games.
QBR is 66.7 on throws at the line of scrimmage, 74.5 between throws from 0 and 9, and the 59 mentioned on throws between 10 and 19. That's woefully bad. And again,
Right, so you're
bailing
picking
from
the
wide
areas of the
open.
field that you don't like, but like
Those
there's
are
other
the
areas of
3.
field.
That's
Like,
everything we have in the Fantasy Points data suite. I even gave him his flowers at over 20 yards. He's been bad when you draft him in the second round.
Those are the important.
Bad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. No quarterback has been good. I just like,
Kyler
to
Murray.
me, it seems like he's clearly like a part of the all quarterbacks suck like trend. Like, it's not been pretty, but I don't know. I don't see anything that's like utterly bad.
It's just he's been the exact same that he's been in his downturns the last 2 years. He's just we've got to get to a point. Yeah. And I said the same thing about Burrow. He's just in that tier of quarterback that doesn't provide enough weekly to hold up to his quote, like his praise. It's just at a point now, right?
Yeah, I mean, we should all just start
What are we looking
Geno,
for?
Darnold, and Derek Carr, and that's our answer to
What
Dynasty
do I
for
say
sure.
on this
Go back
show
to
every
quarterbacks don't
offseason?
matter.
That's exactly what I say every offseason. It is. I do every year. But no, it's legitimate because we get the reason I pose this is because I get asked constantly in our Discord and in Twitter DMs, what do we do? Like, this is just expected. He goes on Linsanity runs for 3 to 4 games, usually about the mid-tier of the season. But the team is regressing with Peterson as the coach. He's got weapons, and he looks like, again, he just doesn't trust his offensive line. There was a play I was describing with Ryan. We talked about there's a clean pick play. No one was at all pressuring Trevor. He bails, rolls left, ends up throwing it at the back of the end zone. Brian Thomas Jr. is just sitting in the middle of the field, just ready. And we have someone asks, is Trevor mad at Kirk? I have no idea at all, but he's just not getting used. I don't know. Everything about it is weird, but he himself is not playing well, in my opinion.
I guess
No, he's not.
From a fantasy perspective, I guess I would just add that there's like one quarterback that is not either in one of these like Mick Shanahan offenses or in or is like a hypermobile guy that has actually had fantasy success over the last couple years sustained. And it's Dak Prescott, essentially, with the highest pass rate over expected in the league since.
Who was cheaper than Lawrence?
So that's kind of what it takes to be like even Patrick Mahomes hasn't been good for fantasy. I agree with Jacob's thoughts that maybe now they decide to air it out a little bit more with Pacheco out. But yeah, I don't even know if I just think that we have kind of in quarterback land, we've kind of divorced a lot between what is like a good fantasy quarterback, like in terms of who should I be drafting in the second round of my dynasty startup versus who a quote unquote good quarterback as we just normally talk about it. But yeah, I think Lawrence just kind of hits like the worst of both edges here where all the mistakes and the turnovers and stuff have been there. And also, there's just kind of no reason to ever think this is going to work for fantasy.
No, I mean, you look at the guys right now, like here's the top, here's your top 10 scoring quarterbacks in fantasy football right now. I mean, this is obviously ridiculously volatile since it's 2 weeks, but Baker Mayfield with Liam Cohen from the McVay tree, Carr with Clint Kubiak from the Shanahan tree, Kyler Murray, mobile, Jaden Daniels, mobile, Lamar Jackson, mobile, Allen, mobile, Hurts, mobile, Anthony Richardson, mobile. We got Geno Smith, kind of his own little Ryan Grubb college thing, and then we've got Sam Darnold, Kevin O'Connell. So basically, we got like pocket quarterbacks with the offensive coordinators that we think are the sharpest in the league, and we have rushing quarterbacks. So I mean, if that's if you're looking for like the actionable thing in Dynasty, like this is what I get super annoyed about a lot of the stuff because we, like Ryan was saying, like it very much conflates like a lot of people's opinions on these dudes in Dynasty versus how people view them in real life. But like Dynasty perspective, like I'm looking at my top rostered quarterbacks right now in over 2x of leagues that are starters, and it's like Lamar, Kyler, Watson, Geno, and Darnold, which is like either like cheap guys right now that you can just hopefully turn fantasy points out of. See, going better for Darnold and Geno than Watson, and then Kyler and Lamar, who hopefully are just going to run enough that they can power their way through this quarterback epidemic. Yeah, it's not fun really investing in like any single one of these guys, even the elite ones right now. I'm sure things will even out over time. Like we're 2 weeks in, nobody plays the preseason anymore to a degree. But yeah, certainly, like if you need a quarterback right now, I mean, I don't know, just trade for Geno Smith or Sam Darnold or Derek Carr or Baker Mayfield seems like a reasonable enough move.
But that's the take that I wanted to eventually get here. And I know rain game, sure, fine. Guys play in the rain. Everything you can find a Trevor Lawrence drop comp, sure. A lot of quarterbacks have that problem. I mean, I screamed about it with Lamar Jackson for years too. I get it. Right, but we hold these guys to a standard if they're getting drafted that high. My point is when does it get better, and when does he meet round 2, and when do we? To me, he's been in this Tua. Also, shout out Tua. Hope you get better, buddy. They're going on the IR, right move. Happy to see the right move getting made. Let's just be honest. But when does Trevor Lawrence get put in that like Jared Goff round 4 tier and out of this round 2 tier? Is really what I was wondering, because I needed something out of him. And now we're getting to a point where people asking if in redraft, if I should drop Trevor Lawrence and just play Derek Carr. And I'm like, honestly, I can't tell you not to right now. So if you're holding the bags in Dynasty still, I don't know, man. I don't know what else to tell you. Lucas?
I mean, y'all are absolutely crushing all of it. I don't think it's necessarily that he's been bad. I think it's just where you draft him puts certain expectations, and where he went the actual NFL draft and how he was anointed as the next generational prospect, the best prospect we've seen since Andrew Luck, yada, yada. It puts these expectations that he should be in the elite tier of pocket passers. And he's not necessarily, one of the top 5 pocket passers in the league, but he's fine.
That's what I'm saying.
If he's your quarterback 1, he's not helping you win right now. If he's in your super flex, he's barely helping you win at all. And you just want more out of somebody that you have seen have a high draft capital attached to them from the day that they entered the league, from the day that they entered college.
I don't think the part of that is, so I think the last part of what you said is very true, like about the value to your lineup. I don't think that the other part is true. His his ADP this year in seasonal was like QB 16. He wasn't being drafted as a fantasy starter this year. His Dynasty ADP obviously is higher than that, because what you're paying for is you're paying for longevity, where he's in no danger of losing his job anytime soon, and you're going to get that. So like, to me, we're actually like it's pretty clearly aligned, basically, when you look at Lawrence, and this applies to Herbert also. He was drafted, like, just going straight up undrafted in some seasonal leagues, and obviously secured a lot of Dynasty value. So I think it's like a different thing where going into the season, the fantasy market at large all basically was saying with their actions between Dynasty drafts and between seasonal drafts, we don't think these guys are going to score that many points this year. And we think it's worthwhile to draft them in the 2nd round or 3rd round, whatever, because of their sustained value as a quarterback in Superflex Dynasty. And so the counter to that, which I somewhat agree with, but not quite as passionately, as like what Tom always says, is like, well, don't pay for longevity at quarterback, right? Pay up for the actual elite producers, or just pay down for the cheaper, shorter term guys who are going to produce similarly. But why I'm getting defensive of like the Trevor aspect specifically is like that was just already what the bet was, right? Like if you're making the bet on Trevor as a Dynasty asset this year, like you're either betting for him to not just meet expectations, but like drastically outperform his seasonal expectations, because his seasonal expectations weren't high. right? Like if people actually thought he was going to score a lot of fantasy points this year, they would have drafted him as a top 12 quarterback in seasonal leagues. Last year they did, right? Last year that was actually true of Trevor Lawrence, where he had seasonal production expectations. Wasn't really true this year. It's just a matter of people paying for QB2, right? You look at him down to Herbert being the most extreme example, to a slightly less extreme example. All these guys who were just valued way higher in Dynasty relative to the redraft price point. That's what the bet was. The bet was longevity. You're going to get that. He's not going to get benched anytime soon. He's certainly not Bryce Young. But yeah, is that worth it? If quarterback scoring is down to the degree it's down, then like unequivocally no. Where if here's the crazy thing. Last year he finished as the QB 17 in fantasy points per game. If anyone wants to guess where he is this year, he's actually the QB 16, which is hilarious because he's averaging like 12 points per game. It's just if obviously the QB 16 at the end of the year, I don't think it's going to average 12 points per game. But last year there were 22 quarterbacks who averaged 15 points per game or more. Right now there's 12.
Yep.
So if that stays directionally accurate, where a mid-level QB2 is performing like an RB2 instead of what's historically been the case, which is mid-level QB2s still produce better than anything but the elite starting running backs and wide receivers, well, then longevity matters because just filling the super flex spot with anyone is going to be helpful. That's not really the case right now. You may as well be starting a running back. So we'll see if that holds up.
Right. And that's where I felt it's important to really separate, because there is always this, we got more weapons that they got for him, and then they spend X on the offensive line, and then now we're really going to know how to use everyone. And it's just a theme, right? So it's important to note that it's time to maybe shift your views on expectations, I think is it. And I think we're coming down to he's probably destined to round 4 for the next little while, unless something changes, even on his big blitz games that he had. Like I said, I give him his props. He goes on Linsanity runs every year. It's going to be hard to do it this year. It really is. But again, down the field. Well,
he gets the Colts twice, so that's
yeah, true. Yeah. I mean, down the field, like I did give him his flowers down the field. He's been the best downfield thrower in the league this year, pretty much. Not named Geno Smith, I'm pretty sure, which is insane. Let's talk about.
If Lawrence wants to show you the truth, I will quickly. If it's like, I'm frankly like way more invested in the Lawrence real life discussion than I am in the Lawrence fantasy discussion. But for both purposes, we're gonna get a very interesting next 3 weeks here, because he gets Monday night prime time against the Buffalo Bills this coming up week, where, Bills tough defense, but probably going to have to match points with Josh Allen and company there. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball as much as they're ridiculously running it right now. Then gets a game against the Houston Texans in Houston, another spot where you're going to have to match points. Then he comes back with the worst defense in the NFL, the Indianapolis Colts. So 2 matchups where he's going to probably have to pass it quite a lot, and then one where he gets a really easy matchup. This is his chance to see if he can go on one of, as Tom calls it, the Linsanity runs or not. Right.
He does, like I said, he gets 4 games a year where he's just insane, like Derek Carr. But to answer the question, do we believe that this is his mediocre, or are we not believing it? This is the point of the bit. Believe it or not.
He's not going to average 12 Trevor points Lawrence per game all year, but he's probably going to be the QB 16.
Yeah, that's the question I'm asking. Is he a mid-range QB2? Do we believe this trend or not, Ryan?
It's kind of what he's been his entire career. So yeah.
Okay.
Why we think very differently. Yeah.
Lucas?
Yeah, unfortunately, gotta believe it.
Okay, we've got 4 believe it's on the believe it or not. Yeah, that's the verdict. Trevor Lawrence destined for round 4. We're gonna go with that. One more quarterback I want to talk about, and this one was more important to me than any other quarterback conversation, because Greg Roman's back in the NFL, and so's Jim Harbaugh, and that can only mean one thing: goodbye to your quarterback if it's not Lamar Jackson with Greg Roman around. Hell, I think Jim Harbaugh would have tried to nerf Lamar Jackson if he could, if he was the coach and not John. But let's talk about it. Are we going to believe it or not that this is just the future of Justin Herbert? I went back and I looked in Justin Herbert's QB2 season, his 2021 year. He hit 294.4 passing yards per game. He attempted roughly, I think I rounded down here a little bit, 39 attempts per game. He averaged 2.2 touchdowns per game. And that's with our usual qualifiers of 10 games played and a minimum of 50 dropbacks to weed out some of the weird starts. He was tied for 9th in fantasy points per dropback with Matthew Stafford with 0.54. That to me, he relies on volume. And let me tell you, volume's not their bag, baby. Not at all. He only has 4 deep throws on the year in 2024. So far, he's attempted 23 passing attempts per game. He's averaging 137 passing yards per game. And I believe he has 3 touchdowns. Ryan, you sent me that they are the 4th worst in pass rate over expected. And week 1 was a more neutral game script. They weren't super ahead, they weren't super behind, and they just wanted to run the rock. So let's ask ourselves about Justin Herbert. It's a little bit of a different question because, again, Herbert in redraft, if you mention where he was projected to score points, not high. But again, Herbert still being drafted very highly. To me, this is a get-out situation. If we get this for 2 to 3 years, I want out. I had already gotten out before he even played for most of my leagues. But believe it or not, Harbaugh is going to continue to absolutely neuter Justin Herbert for his tenure in LA. Brian, we can start with Brian.
Yeah, it's kind of the real question is kind of what you just teed up there, which is how long do we think in the long term is Harbaugh sticking around? Is Greg Roman sticking around? Right. I think we've seen enough in both of their careers and over these first 2 games of how they want this offense to look. It's going to be run heavy if
right.
It can be. Right?
And we have an answer to that, by the way. Harbaugh never is in the NFL longer than 3 years.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. So yeah, I think you have to balance that, right? Do I think Harbaugh gets fired after 1 year? Is this like the revolving door in LA? I'm not so sure about that. I mean, there's been a baseline level of competency. Like they beat up on the Panthers. That's kind of what you would expect them to do. But yeah, I don't know. So yes, I think in the medium term, yeah, you need to be worried about Justin Herbert. I think going back to the conversation we were just having, Justin Herbert's not a hypermobile quarterback. This is not a Mick Shanahan offense, certainly the furthest thing from it. So yeah, I think it's hard to expect more than like the Trevor Lawrence type of experience take from Justin Herbert. And it's a very similar thing in Dynasty where, yeah, you were paying the higher price for the perceived stability, for like the former top 5 draft capital, for at least in Herbert's case, like the incredibly productive rookie season. But yeah, it just hasn't materialized at all since then, and it's looking less and less likely, at least in the medium term.
Right. I agree with that, Lucas.
So right now, I just had to go look it up because I was curious. Alex Smith, whenever Jim Harbaugh was in San Francisco, averaged about 16 fantasy points per game. And I kind of see that as what we should be expecting from Justin Herbert. It kind of sucks, but I think that we're going to be dealing with this for at least 4 years because that's how long Jim Harbaugh's NCAA show cause is. Before they add on whatever comes from the whole sign stealing scandal, if he even gets anything else. I don't know. I think that Jim Harbaugh is in the NFL for a little while. We shall see, though. But unless he starts using his legs more, which he has the ability to, he's a very athletic quarterback. And I think he has all the ability in the world. But the scheme that Harbaugh wants to run, it's very evident so far through these 2 weeks, plus all of these San Francisco years we have to fall back on. He's just going to be this type of player who they're not really going to let him fully loose. And it's also going to be the same if they don't actually upgrade his wide receiver core, which who knows if they will, but at least he's better protected now. We can at least say that.
Oh my God. Joe Alt is so Joe Alt, you can just check the box. Like, we see what he looks like. He's definitely into country music, definitely grew up on a farm. Joe Schmo, never been in trouble, an A+ student, the Hall of Fame, like, check the box, Hall of Fame offensive tackle. Just lock him in. I have a hard time disagreeing with you, Jacob.
I'm not quite as down on Herbert as you guys are. They played, like, I mean, we know the deal with the Chargers under Harbaugh is that if they're not pushed, they're just going to run the ball repeatedly. So these games are going to happen. I think we kind of knew they were going to happen. They played the Raiders and the Panthers so far. They led pretty comfortably in both of these spots and ran the shit out of the ball, which is going to be what they're going to do. I do think we'll probably see far better receiving cores over time than the one that they currently have right now, which is rookie year Ladd McConkey in his first 2 games, injured Josh Palmer, and apparently the resuscitated Quentin Johnston, which I think says more about the Chargers receiving core than Quentin Johnston. So I would suspect that this is kind of the worst that we're going to actually see it. The comparison I've made that I still think I will stand by is the Pete Carroll era Russell Wilson, when you had a quarterback who at the time was clearly one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And it would be a constant mix of very infuriating games when they would just run the ball and not try to pass and win the ball with running and defense. And then you'd have these spike games where they would get pushed off of what they wanted to do, either due to a matchup or just the other offense on their side was putting up a ton of points. And because Wilson was very good, he was able to keep up and have these big spike performances. To me, that's going to still think what we're going to see some of with Herbert. Maybe a little bit less so this year just because the receiving weapons are so poor. But I think especially over time, like we're still going to have a weekly ceiling there. He is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I have no issues with the talent. He's proven it even to a much higher degree than what we were just talking about with Trevor Lawrence. But the weeks like this are certainly going to be there where they're just not going to have the volume. And like he doesn't have the rushing volume. So the only thing with Herbert is it's gonna have to be pass touchdowns. He's gonna have to have 3 pass touchdowns in a week to have a ceiling, and he's gonna have weeks like that. But pass touchdowns are volatile, and there's gonna be weeks where he has 1, and those weeks are gonna suck for fantasy.
Shout out Bay Shaboba. Haven't seen you in the chat in a long time. Happy to know you are doing well.
That's not what Harbaugh believes in. Harbaugh believes in running to score and running to win.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. The thing with Russell Wilson is that dude ran like 489, 500, 850, 500. I don't know if they actually have Herbert do that, but you are right. Like this is a guy that we can undeniably say benefited from volume. I don't know if that volume's. I think they have to be down 14 because with that Raiders game, they didn't get significantly up until the 4th, and they were still just ran it. I mean, they threw it 26 times with Herbert that game. That was actually his highest of the 2 totals, which isn't totally surprising. But you're right. It's going to come down to touchdowns, and we need him to start running. Otherwise, again, we got a couple of years of being down. Here's my question for you guys, because I did write Justin Herbert up in my article that's probably going up in the next day or so that Ryan did a gracious job editing vigorously. I did put him in my...
While you were talking smack in the Twitter group chat about beating me this weekend.
It is true. Yeah, that wasn't lost.
While you were talking smack.
That wasn't lost on me at all. I thought it was funny. It's just my humor, Ryan. When you beat me...
Like you take advantage of me like this, Tom.
I welcome you to mock me when if and or when the day comes that you beat me in a league. I mean, ask Jacob. I beat him in the finals and I let him know about it for 2 years. And then I don't let him talk smack on the fact that he beat me in the finals just last year. So
yeah, I don't even bring it up.
I know. I need this.
I'll move on to the next.
You guys have Twitter followers. I need this. Okay. These games mean something to me. Please follow me. God. But my question is, are we selling at all to tier over to maybe some more upside while Justin Herbert can still survive on the name Herbert before people start seeing the actual decline in production? I think this is a very relevant conversation because if the person out there still believes, maybe even someone that believes a little bit more than maybe Jacob would you be trying to move off of him at all while you can?
So I'm going to answer your question with a question. And this came up in my mind because of the comment Jacob made about, we just need like them to get pushed off of what they want to do. He'll have to have like a 3 passing touchdown game. How many games with 3 passing touchdowns do you think Justin Herbert has since the start of 2022? Just wild.
Well, they've been inept, right? I mean, this is the thing with Harbaugh that I'll
say 4.
Like, I actually think we're going to see more of that because I think that I actually don't think Harbaugh's a donkey. Like I think this team is going to be good and they're going to score points and they're going to win games. It's just they're not going to do it in a way that we like. But I think that they're going to have like a far more functional NFL offense than they had last year, when it was just like a disaster. But I don't know. I'll still guess the answer is like 3.
What do you
I'm
think?
going to go with 5.
Okay, you're all too low. It was actually 6. So 6.
I win.
6
Take it.
3 TD games for Herbert in the last 2 years and change. So yeah, 3 times a season, 4 times, 5 times a season, if we are giving a Harbaugh premium here, which I think is maybe a little optimistic, but fair enough. Yeah, I think you sell off the name value, but I don't know to what extent that exists. That's going to be very league dependent, right? I think,
Right.
especially after we have actually come and watched this Chargers team play football for 2 games, I think it's a lot harder to talk yourself into as a dynasty manager receiving a Justin Herbert offer. Oh, it's Justin Herbert. He's really all the reasons Jacob was saying. He's really good. He's proven the talent. I think right now the zeitgeist is going to be more like, oh my God, like they're never going to throw the ball again. Herbert is dead. So
you could try and sell if you want, but 3 of the next 5 weeks they get Chiefs, Cardinals, Saints. So these are spots where I think you're going to. Well, if I'm wrong and you don't get any production of Herbert in those games, then it's over. So if you don't think that Herbert is going to have any sort of upside, then by all means sell now, because those are his opportunities. But if you have some level of faith that like Herbert is actually still quite capable and it's just Harbaugh pushing him down, then those are the spots where he's going to potentially have to dole out the fantasy points, because they're going to have to throw to keep up. Well, you never know. But you would project more or less you'd have to throw to keep up in a game against the Chiefs, Saints, Cardinals than against the Carolina Panthers.
I have watched Greg Roman call run play after run play down 15 multiple times to come back in a game, and that's what scares me. So we'll just see, man. I agree. I think the next couple of weeks are important. I feel like that's why it was important to ask this now, because people have already started the panic. So to me, I feel like it was important to ask. Let's get our second break, and we're going to move on to some wide receivers and then possibly some tight ends. Although I think I'm over tight ends. I don't even know if I want to talk about them today because they just pissed me off this weekend. I'm not sure. Let me know in the chat if you want us to talk about some tight ends, and maybe we will, but you let us know. Quick break. We'll be right back. It's important to ask the people what they want at the same time, because, we're men of the people. This is what we're here for. Let's talk about some wide receivers. I want to talk about Chris Godwin because, well, he's goated, and he was our favorite receiver to pick up in the 9th round. He was going as the wide receiver 40 between the months of June and the end of July. Insane. Absolutely insane. But there's a little bit of a discrepancy, so it's important to note. So let's see if we believe or not that Chris Godwin is keeping up at least somewhat into this top 10 pace. Let's say he's currently the wide receiver 1. He scored 23.5 points per game through 2 games, but he's had an expected fantasy points per game of 13.2. That is a significant overperforming situation, but he has a 34.2% first read target share. He's not particularly making people miss, but he's got 12 first downs, so they go to him. He's second in targets per route run at 0.37 behind Cooper Kupp. He's set to smash in this Kupp-like role. So let's just ask the question. The Buccaneers look like legitimate Super Bowl contenders. Lucas touched on this when he said that Baker Mayfield just looks like the guy he was meant to be in Cleveland, which we're all super happy for because he's been super cheap. Let's talk about it. Chris Godwin, do we believe or not that he is going to continue this top 10 pace?
No.
Artist,
no.
Not at all.
They got outgained by 250 yards. I don't think that the Bucs are actually a good team. They beat up on a terrible Washington team, and they got outplayed massively by a Lions team that just kept turning the ball over on downs or having Jared Goff throw picks. That, to me, that was one of the most, you simulate this game 100 times and the team that won wins 5 of the year. And yeah, I'm selling on the Bucs being actually good. I'm buying on Chris Godwin was way underpriced relative to Mike Evans, and it made no sense that we priced them way differently when they've been priced basically the same their whole careers together. But Top 10, gonna say no on that one. I would think he's still a wide receiver too.
Okay, Lucas.
I want to be in on him. I really do. Top 10 is a little steep. I'm going to say top 15 if I can. If I can flex to that. I think he'll be a top 15 wide receiver.
Okay. I find that just because, okay, well, we've seen how good he can be in this role previously. Let's not forget, Ryan wanted me to pop this up. I'm going to pop this up. Let's get Ryan's take. Let's talk about this chart right here, Ryan.
Yeah, there's not even like a huge take on this chart. I just love that. Usually when I make charts and post them on Twitter, it's Tyreek Hill that's like breaking it and making it unreadable because he's so much ahead of everyone else. But it was Chris Godwin this week. That's first downs per route run. So Chris Godwin, in terms of generating first downs, by far the most effective wide receiver in the league right now. I'm not buying top 10. So yes, this role is absolutely perfect for him. We've seen his splits, whether it's from a separation standpoint, just a fantasy points per route run standpoint in the slot, have been a lot better. Of course, he was miscast on the outside last year. Liam Cohn has said that Godwin is in the Cooper Kupp role, essentially, which, yeah, that's kind of what it's looked like through 2 weeks. Godwin's in the Cooper Kupp role. I agree that top 10 is ambitious. I would go more top 15, top 20. I think he's a productive player for your fantasy teams this year, and I think he probably leads the Bucs in receiving. That's like the slightly.
Oh wow, okay, that's a hot take.
That he beats Mike Evans in receiving yardage this year.
Okay, see, I'm not going to buy top 10. I set top 10 as the line on purpose just to see if I could get one. I don't think he's going to be top 10, but I will say this. I'm going to buy that he stays insanely productive and we get that 15.5 plus point per game season from him again. They can't run the football. Like Bucky Irving didn't even look super great running the football. And now Rachaad White is banged up and also sucks at running the football. So we're talking about the kind of offense that we want. And yes, they beat up on some interesting matchups for sure, but they've got more on the way. They're going to have to throw the football. And Baker right now looks like he can just hammer the slot at will. And they're running the plays for Godwin the way that we want him. He's scoring some touchdowns. So I think he's going to settle into probably closer 15 and a half, 16 points per game, but I am buying. I'm reaching out and buying. This is the guy at wide receiver 40 that with this usage is like a legitimate league winner. I know league winner gets thrown around like a lot, but when you look at how some wide receivers are just struggling to score right now and you drafted them in round 1, like let's look at Jamar Chase, right? Like slow start to the year. You're getting a guy that on a week-to-week basis can produce 80% of what Jamar Chase gives you right now with that offense. That's a legitimate league winner. That's the guy I want in a flex spot. Like that's someone you can put in your super flex spot right now, like Jacob talked about with the quarterbacks. So I'm buying. I'm 100% buying his production and that he is just good, especially in this offense. So I'm buying that. I'm going to not believe that he's top 10. I set that bar high. I know I did. I expected somebody to maybe bite on this. So we're all pretty reasonable. I will ask though, what are you buying for? Like, what are you willing to put in for a player who he has the role we want? He's producing the way we want. The offense is running the way we want. Like he has the contract. He's not 30. Like he literally checks the box of like a perfect dynasty wide receiver, 4, 5, 6.
I make a habit of not buying 28-year-olds coming off of 25-point games, so I probably won't be sending any Chris Godwin offers today. But I don't know. Maybe I'll send out some offers at some point if he has a couple bad games in a row or sprains an ankle. I'm not paying a first for Chris Godwin, and if you're the Chris Godwin manager and you have just enjoyed his lovely 7 for 117 and 1 performance, like you're probably asking for a first. So not gonna happen for me, but
like there is gonna be someone whose team is 0-2 with Chris Godwin on it. Like we're talking about possibilities. There's somebody that's gonna want to dump the points. I think that those are the people that you need to be asking, because they're going to be happier to move off of them at a lower cost than somebody obviously who's 2-0 and has Godwin and is absolutely loving life right now. But there is somebody out there that does have them that should move them because of their points for. I did some digging. I found some, George Pickens trades via Dynasty Data Lab that you can go and check out for kind of a comparison for structures and builds. I suggest doing that. Take a look at Keep Trade Cut, see what's available out there. But he's still very reasonably priced in terms of. And
who's like a somewhat sexy receiver that you would trade for Godwin?
George Pickens. Right, the people.
Okay, give me Pickens, please. I actually,
I would rather Godwin.
I have Godwin, and I could take advantage of this run to go get George Pickens. That would be like George Pickens would be like number 3 of wide receivers I want to trade for right now.
Oh, geez, I could see that's when I couldn't disagree.
He has looked
more.
Absolutely phenomenal through the first 2 weeks, popping in all the advanced stuff, and not just in the advanced stuff. Popping on my screen, and he would be popping in your fantasy lineups if the refs would just stop being fascists for 1 second. Took away a 51-yard touchdown or 51-yard catch, and then another touchdown that comes back from OPI. So he has a game last week.
Yeah, that's his thing. I've said it for years.
There was one. It wasn't on OPI. That one was OPI and not on him. It was on his teammate, and then another one was a holding call on one of the offensive linemen. Take away those 2 penalties, we're looking at a game with 90 yards and a touchdown against Patrick Surtain all game in shadow coverage, and in a game where Justin Fields basically didn't throw any passes. So, I don't know exactly what the ceiling is when you're in the Arthur Smith, Justin Fields vortex for 2024. I get that. But in terms of a guy that I felt like after his first 2 years, we could definitely say was good, but we weren't really sure if he was great. I'm increasingly sure that he's great. So I would love to make this kind of move to go get George Pickens. That's a rapid riser. I'm doing my Dynasty rankings update.
See,
for me, tonight or tomorrow night, he will be up a tier. That's for sure.
See, if I can get Godwin plus then from somebody that's super into the Pickens, I'm just doing that. We're looking at Arthur Smith still run 12 and 13 personnel more often than not. He's found a way to turn Justin Fields into a terrible fantasy asset. We're just dealing with the same shit. This is just Drake London now. This is the same shit.
So, okay, the stuff you're saying about Fields, all this stuff is true about Arthur Smith. Not going to debate any of that. But exactly what you're saying about the box, it gets back to what we were saying about the Chargers. Back to what I was saying at the very top of this program. There are just some teams who are completely pulverizing the fantasy value of everyone in the game on both sides because they're so bad. Mm-hmm. And then most of the somewhat competent teams right now are largely coming off the back of their defense and aren't that aggressive. And so you end up getting these games that we've got Steelers Broncos. We're again, those 2 calls go differently. Pickens has a 20-point half. Fields has a 23-point half. But those calls don't go differently. And Bo Nix is Bo Nix. And Sean Payton is kicking a bunch of field goals he shouldn't have kicked and punting and not even onside kicking when he's still down 7. And the Steelers basically just don't play football the second half of the game. They're just all right, we're kneeling on the ball for a half. And so that's just when we're looking at a 2-week small sample, and I think there's going to be a lot of noise where some teams like the Bucs go up against 2 pretty suspect defenses and 2 teams that actually play fast and fight and try to compete in games. And then teams like the Steelers are going up against just total nothings. And you're going to get, I think, some noise there where things start to look a lot better. And that's going to even out, I think, over the course of the season where it's just going to be part of the deal, unfortunately, in fantasy, where a lot of these teams, with slight exceptions of some of the teams that are willing to be aggressive, at least in the first half, enough where they get out in front. But there's just going to be games everybody has to play the Broncos at some point. And if you're playing the Broncos, it's just not going to be fun for you because they're a reasonable enough defense that you're not going to pull away that fast. And then their offense is non-competitive. So you're just going to be running the ball. It just sucks. And
I get it. I think
that'd be what I would try to take advantage of early season.
See,
I want to piggyback there too on the Steelers. I was writing this up with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. The Steelers have only trailed by a score on 16% of their offensive plays so far this year. So yeah, I think there's and there also that's not even bottom of the league. That's like 7th or 8th lowest right now. So there's a lot of teams that just haven't, including like the Steelers, not like by no means like a juggernaut, right? I don't think you would go into this season saying, okay, the Steelers are rarely going to be trailing. I think a lot of these teams, kind of like the Steelers, are going to be trailing more this year. So yeah, just as Jacob's saying, just feeding more into, this is a small sample of games, but also it's a very specific sample for a handful of these teams where they've just had no reason to try to play football.
I would like to go back and look at like the previous years with the Steelers. This just feels like what the Steelers do. Like they're always just kind of in games. They're never like totally. So my argument for this is, do I want the opportunity to have 8 targets for 7 catches, 80 and 1, or like 7 for 65, and then take a shot that my receiver that I didn't get the plus for gets like 6 targets, catches 3, and one of them goes? Like that's to me the difference in play style, and that to me is what I think Pickens is. That's I think what he has
probably
been.
Going to score Pickens this year.
That's why I'm saying if I can get the
by how much,
like
is it going to be that material? Like is 1 to 2 points per game difference average over the whole season? Is that winning me my Dynasty championship? Because it better, because like Pickens is definitely gonna be worth more than Godwin next offseason.
But it does if you get the liquidity in the plus, which is why I said, like, if I'm finding someone that's as into it and definitive as you are, I better be getting that other piece that's like liquid that I can use to get something else. To me, that's the difference. That's me. That's the way I'm playing it. So I would actually like to touch on that. That could be like a fun little thing in a couple of weeks. Lucas, can we write down Godwin v Pickens for the rest of the year and just make a note, because I'd actually be interested to see how that goes. Not a bet or anything.
I want to note it also that, as I just said before my words wound up getting twisted, if you're asking me who I think is going to score more points this year, I maintain that I think it is Chris Godwin.
100%. No, I 100%. That's why I want to see basically what I'm asking. Why I'm asking, I want to track it. I want to track from keep, trade, cut, and then statistics and see what actually matters to Dynasty managers, because I feel like a lot of podcasts will go out there and tell you, oh, just trade guy for guy X and a plus, and then don't actually follow up on what the hell the difference was. We're going to find out what the hell the difference
Here's what
was.
I think is going to happen is what tends to happen is that Godwin's going to outproduce Pickens. So I need to make sure my hands are in the right spot. Jeez. So for the whole course of this year, right, here's Pickens starting the year, here's Godwin starting the year. And then Godwin's going to outproduce Pickens. Pickens probably still going to have good peripheral stats. It's going to get closer. 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 Oh my God, it's going to get so close. And then the offseason is going to drop. People are going to go see their families for a month, and they're going to get in startup brain in March. And then whoop! Oh my God, we got a big gap again. Look at that.
Yeah. No, I agree. And then once again, Chris Godwin's going to be a buy again because he's going to get drafted at wide receiver like 43 because he's a year older. So this is for sure. That's for sure definitely a likely outcome. Let's talk about one that I know I want to do last in this. We're not going to do tight ends, but because none of you guys said tight ends, so you're out now. Tight ends are out. We got to do backfields and then get out of here. 2 wide receivers left, and I find 2 of them to be completely opposite ends of the spectrum for me and what I believe. So myself and the people need to hear you guys. I want to talk about JSN because I feel like last week was a massive overcorrection. You go to keep, trade, cut before the game. He was wide receiver 36. You check today, he's wide receiver 26. He's jumped 10 spots for a game that I think that we can all fully admit is an outlier game. 16 targets, 12 receptions. He went absolutely nuclear. Ryan, I was asking you who had Gonzalez. DK just ate him up. Chris Weck posted that from the Fantasy Points data account. DK just ate him up. And there's some, a little bit of disagreement on alignment and whose job it actually was. The matchup reports, it's not perfect, but it just helps give an idea. Geno Smith just absolutely balled out. Now, I want to talk about a couple of things with this because I don't know what to believe at all through this. This was just a complete bit of insanity. I don't know if this is just Geno playing out of his damn mind. The Seahawks rank 31st in pass block win rate at 38%. They're 31st in run block win rate at 65%. per Jackson A. Bevins. Geno Smith being QB4 in QBR is truly insane. We stand Geno Smith all offseason. I even wrote him up in Veterans to Buy in February for this reason, is that he can do this under pressure. He's been insane. You go to week 1 and JSN had his Applebee's, right? 2 for 19, 2 for 25. Okay. And then we get this. This is the two biggest night and day differences other than like Malik Neighbors week 1 to week 2. Maybe even Marvin Harrison. I need to know some takeaways because I think he's West Coast Chris Godwin. Like I think that's just like what his career is destined to be. But now he looks like that top guy from Ohio State after a singular week in what I think is a plus matchup. So I need you three super intelligent human beings to tell me what the hell is happening with JSN kind of moving forward, because I don't know what to expect. I think I need to expect right in the middle, but you guys tell me. Ryan?
All right. So I think the first important thing to maybe acknowledge here is in week 1, the Seahawks came out very, very run heavy against the Broncos, going back to our previous discussion. So all offseason, we heard from this coaching staff that they're absolutely enamored with Ken Walker. They want to completely run their offense through him. They want to throw the ball to him, which is an interesting decision when you have those 3 other wide receivers you could throw it to instead. So, and that's exactly what we saw in week 1, right? It was, oh my God, I am getting flashbacks to Pete Carroll, except he likes Ken Walker more, which was great for Ken Walker, not great for the passing attack, right? But as soon as Ken Walker misses week 2, and by the way, is Edwin Porras has kind of he hasn't hit IR yet, right? There's a chance that Walker hits IR. That's in the realm of possibility.
They snuck that in like while they were
I did not
warming
hear
up.
this. Where what the hell is this?
They snuck the Ken Walker multiple weeks thing like after warm-ups in the game. They were really sneaky about it.
Oh, so man. I was thinking we were like I was thinking we were getting him back like week 3 or week 4. This is a bummer. All right.
Yeah. The team hasn't said IR. That's Edwin Porras' speculation. He's pretty good at this. Anyways,
that'd be pretty upsetting if they didn't go IR week 1 and then IR later. But all right. Yeah, you have to send me that Porras tweet because this is bad radio, but I'm now just like
right. I will find that after. Yes. So anyways, that if that's how the Seahawks want to run their offense, then obviously that's bad for JSN, right? I was after week 1, I was writing, oh, JSN, look, a dot of 2 yards, right? Like it just exactly kind of what we were afraid of and looked exactly like his usage did in year 1, right? Obviously completely different in week 2. 170 air yards, which is I don't know how many air yards JSN had all of last year, but I'm going to guess that's around like 40% of his 2024 air yards total. So, yeah, I think maybe for these next couple weeks, if the Seahawks are just saying, okay, well, without Ken Walker, Charbonnet's fine, played every single snap, by the way, but we want to go pass heavy, similar to like the Pat Mahomes thesis right now without Pacheco. If that's kind of what we see, then yeah, I think JSN can be productive, can continue to build upon his dynasty value. But I would just caveat, if Walker comes back, hopefully soon, but even if it's like week 8 or week 9 or whatever, then I think there's a chance that this offense just kind of pulls back again if they don't have overwhelming success against better teams than the Patriots.
Don't you think that's kind of a toothpaste in the tube thing? For me, it is. Like to me, this is. They go in now. You're closer to it, so you're calling the Patriots a bad defense. I don't think they're a bad defense.
I don't think it's a bad defense.
Their secondary is rough, dude.
Yeah, Gonzalez is good. The rest of the secondary has issues, and I don't know how good the coaching is at this point.
The Patriots live through their front 7,
which we saw on that miscommunication.
I think the coaching is good defensively. I trust Mayo defensively. I don't trust him as like a program CEO. But all right. Okay, so I'll take your word for their secondary being a bit overrated outside of Gonzalez. Geno still played phenomenal in that game. And like a lot of the stuff he was doing was like tight window stuff. And the way that JSN played was remarkable and was a revelation. I mean, easily the best game of his career. Metcalf is explosive. I don't know. That to me strikes me as a situation where like they find something that now they know works. They know they can get the ball to these two receivers. I think that's something you want to keep going back to. Surely they'll run the ball more with Walker than with Sharps, because like Charbonnet is a Samaje P. Ryan-ass running back, which is like I love him for fantasy because he is like a big dude who can play 97% snap rates and can catch 5 passes and can get goal line work. Like that's great, right? The Charbonnet role that he's in right now is just better for fantasy than a healthy Ken Walker is for fantasy.
Yeah.
Even though Ken Walker is galaxies more talented of an actual running back, this Zach Charbonnet role for fantasy is so mid. It's like late career Leonard Fournette out there. But it's also great for everybody else because he can't do shit as a runner. And so they actually have to pass. I hope it continues. I'm more bullish on it continuing than Ryan. I mean, I don't know. I don't
Continuing
know if you can
like
buy
this
JSN.
is a stretch.
He went like too crazy. Well, yeah, he's not going to get 16 targets every week, but
right.
I don't know. I feel like it's not even possible to buy high on JSN because like the people who were willing to, his dynasty valuation made no sense this whole time with his production. So like, I don't imagine that anyone who's been holding JSN to this point has like an ounce of fear in their hearts. So to me, they are going to be like confirmationing, biasing their way to ranking JSN as like the wide receiver 9 in Dynasty. I don't think that they're going to be looking to sell high. So I haven't even tried making an offer, but I'm pretty bullish.
Lucas?
Yeah, I mean, with JSN, I really like his upcoming schedule. Against Miami this weekend, I don't know if we really know what to expect from the Miami defense or really the offense with Tua being out and on IR. But then after that, at Detroit versus New York versus San Francisco, I think that there is a really good chance that his stock's going to continue to go up. I personally don't see an issue with him being up at wide receiver 26. It's just kind of like, I think we were even saying it this offseason that where he was going felt just a little bit low. And I thought that it was at the low end of our expectations for what he could be doing this season. So I think that there's a really good chance for stock to continue to go up. And then if you're still not sold, like Thomas, I don't think you're too sold right now, or at least that's just what I'm getting right now.
Oh, I'll get there.
But if you aren't sold on him, wait until after the San Francisco game, then start looking to sell him after that. It's a really nice setup right now. And who knows, maybe you'll be a believer by then and you'll keep playing him, although it does get a little bit rougher after that with Atlanta versus Buffalo immediately following before the Rams and his bye.
Someone's going to comment that I keep cutting you off at the end of your sentences. I know that comment's coming on Twitter again, and something about my mic volume being too loud. I don't know. And us being unprofessional. Who knows? I'm not a believer. Like, you don't get 16 targets if the team doesn't want to throw it. I just think this was maybe a bit of a perfect storm. And I think that maybe he has a bit of a perfect storm ahead of him for 3 to 4 weeks if Ken Walker's not back. And you get matchups. Now, if I
I'm going to cut off your sentence. Never mind.
We're just not professionals on this program at all. We're going to go long. We're cutting everyone off. 3 of our I don't know. It's crazy. We're not pros here. I think that he does have the perfect storm, and we want wide receivers to finally break out and do well. We knew that one thing needed to happen for JSN to really become, an upper tier. I don't think he's a top 12 wide receiver. I don't think he's going to finish as a top 12 wide receiver. What we did need to have happen, though, was Tyler Lockett needed to catch fewer passes than Jackson Smith and Jigba. And in week 1, JSN didn't do it. Lockett led the team in a very Lockett way. I think it was 7 for like 65 or 7 for like 71. It was a very Tyler Lockett game. In this game, however, he starts off the same. He had 4 catches for 22 yards to start this game, and then he finally got a couple down the field. He had some yak in there. I think he had about 30 yards after catch, which we love to see. And then you got help with a little bit of overtime. Sure. perfect storms, but he kind of continues to get perfect storms. Miami. Now, maybe Seattle goes up early on Miami because Miami's offense can't do dick with Skylar Thompson. Like, let's be real. Just play Snoop. All right, just play Tyler Huntley. He run that offense.
No, I don't want Huntley. If I'm gonna get nothing out of this fucking offense, I better at least get my Achane checkdowns.
Fair. Okay, respect. Then he gets Detroit, who was
bench Waddle everywhere.
Who was bad in the slot, right? You got eaten alive by Godwin. This can be another JSN game here.
And eaten alive by Kupp, right? Like,
yeah,
21
exactly.
Targets. Yeah.
Then the Giants, whose defense is woeful, but again, I think that Seattle can get up early on Miami right now, and I think they can get up early on the Giants. So how much do they throw, and how much do they want to pound the rock? When does Ken Walker get back? And then, like Lucas said, San Francisco's the test. And then their schedule doesn't really get easier towards the end of the year. So I think the next 3 weeks are really going to matter. I think his dynasty value is going to shoot to top 12. I think it'll be top 12 by the end of next week. And I think I want out. I think I'm going to want out at 12. But we'll see. But again, we got a 10-spot overcorrection on one game that we know is a career outlier. And to me, when you have like a game that's closer to his average and then one game that's a massive outlier, I expect him to meet in the middle. Like Lucas pointed out, he's got a couple of games. So I think you're right. I think we're wait and see. I think he's a good player. It's nice to see his ADOT come up. Like, that was very cool. Like, I want to see that. I'm tired of seeing Zay Flowers being used behind the line of scrimmage. Tired of watching a good receiver in JSN. His thing was always the price, like Lucas said. We said all year, like, when that price changes, we want to buy. There's opportunity. Well, what if? Right? That's why we play portfolio. I played him this week for everyone that went at me. I played him. I was smart enough to recognize matchup and Walker being out. Jeez, get off my back here a little bit. But I guess to answer Ripley's believe it or not, does he carry? Well, let's go top 16 for JSN rest of the season.
Like, does he end the season as a top
points per game, top 16?
Yeah. Oh, points per game, top 16? No.
Yeah, let's make him top 16 because this is he's out. He's broken out now. This is just his role. I'm going off of Discord and Twitter conversations. This isn't straw man. I have a reason.
Okay. I'm not
So
judging.
we'll say is he going to be?
I will say no to top 16 production rest of the season.
Okay. Lucas?
Top 16 that is so tough. So no, I don't think he's going to be doing that. I'm looking at him to finish in a competitive wide receiver 2 role. So not quite wide receiver 2, but if he's your flex, if he's your wide receiver 2, it's not the end of the world for you. And I'm expecting for his dynasty ADP to be about wide receiver 26 as well. So I don't think he's really going to be moving up around. But I think that he's going to be very competitive, and we'll be speaking about him in the same tone as Zay Flowers, Tank Dell next offseason. So
okay, Ryan?
I could see like 13 to 14 fantasy points per game, a little more with like touchdown luck or whatever. Is that top 16 in some years? Sure. Is it like, oh, I'm super bullish on the production, like he's a clear high-end wide receiver 2 or anything like? Not really. That's not how I'm viewing him.
I'll be the bull. I'm not going to take top 16 because I don't think that's over 50% likely to happen, and that's just the question that was asked. But I do want to push. I do think there's a legitimate ceiling. Tyler Lockett, you mentioned, right? This game, and I know it was not the case week 1. So, that exists too. But in this game, 16 targets JSN, 14 targets DK Metcalf, 2 targets for Tyler Lockett. To me, that's the most important part, is that they went in with a clear-cut game plan of building everything around DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith and Jigba. That's the path, right? Geno Smith right now is like, I'm prone to hyperbole when it comes to Geno Smith, but he's legitimately playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. He just is. It's a league where every quarterback is playing bad, and Geno Smith is one of the ones who isn't. It feels like he's like the guy out there in the British Open, and it's the wind and the rain, and everybody else is throwing up 80s, and he's just like cranking up pars, and he drains a 20-footer for birdie, the one making all the tough throws that nobody else is willing to take on. So is it plausible to me that if this offense just concentrated entirely around the 2 guys, that they could have 2 top 15 wide receivers? Like, That is plausible to me because of how bad most of these passing games are. And this is one of the few passing games that isn't. So it just comes down to, like, the one thing I have a lot of faith in is Geno. I fully believe in him. I have a little less faith in just can JSN truly dust Lockett out of the equation, because that's buying into a 1 week sample of that happening. And then it's also, can they keep the pass rate up? Right. Which I don't know. We have 1 week of them doing it without Walker. They didn't do it with Walker. We'll see. But I do think it's at least plausible. If someone's saying, like, well, what's the upside really of this sort of low ADOT guy? The upside is that they run a whole offense through two guys. DK's the explosive guy. JSN's the possession guy. And that can totally work and get you 2 top 15 receivers. Just, we got to see them actually commit to doing that.
Okay. I'm gonna not buy top 16. I will say 18, but I think in Dynasty, I think he finishes the wide receiver 12 by the end of the year. I think he will be the ranked across all the crowdsourcing. He might even creep close that way to me, to wide receiver 12 by the end of it, because he just has to keep beating out Lockett. So we'll see. If he has more games where he beats out Lockett than not, I think I'd be willing to move him up. Last receiver. We'll go quick on this one because we've talked a lot of receivers. We'll go quick on that because I want to hit some.
Let's just go right to the believe it or not portion here.
Look, Jameson Williams has been insanely dominant. He has 200 yards, 19 points per game over the last two. He's got 8 yards after the catch, 21st read targets. He's nuking Sam Laporta. Now, I do think that when they tried to run in the second game against the Bucks, when they tried to run the offense through Jameson Williams, it wasn't working, and there was a clear shift to get Amon-Ra St. Brown more involved. But I had Jameson Williams as my sleeper breakout at like 12.5 points per game, and it looks like he's going to shatter that in this offense. Are we believing it or are we not?
I believe it. I believe it. This offense, everybody else in this offense, this was the big reason why I was, been screaming Sam Laporta all summer, much to the displeasure of Tom in the comments, is that everybody else in this offense worked the same depth of the field. Gibbs is a short area target. Amon-Ra is a short area target. Laporta is a short area target. Like, I'm surprised that this is actually happening with Jameson Williams, but the thing that he has in his favor is that he's not that. He plays at a completely different depth. He plays a completely different role than everybody else. And that's the role that they needed. To me, for this offense to take the next step and to actually turn this team into a very legitimate Super Bowl favorite, it needs to have that vertical element. And Jameson Williams provides that. So to me, his stuff is pretty safe. And as the offense shifts toward incorporating more of that, then what the issue ends up being is that then there's less room for everybody to eat in the 8-yard area. And if you have to choose between who you want doing that, Amon-Ra or Laporta, the choice is probably going to be Amon-Ra. So point being, do I think that this can stick? Do I think this? Yes, because I think it makes this offense a lot better if they actually have a guy that can do this. I did not think Jameson was capable of doing this prior to this season, but now I do. So the fact that he's going to be doing it, I think there's no reason for them to go away from it, because I think it's really badly needed for this team.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I am buying this. I believe it. And just expanding more on the Laporta stuff. Yeah, while his ADOT was kind of shallower last year, Laporta was used as their single high coverage beater, right? Where it's Amon-Ra underneath against too high. Laporta became much more efficient against single high, and when there was no blitz and no pressure, when the play could develop a little bit more, right? But now, first of all, Jamo is getting the first reads. He is a first read type of player. Sam Laporta, as most tight ends are not. So that another kind of first read being in the tree is bad for him. And also, if the play can develop, on average, you're probably getting a lot more out of a shot downfield to Jameson Williams than you are to Sam Laporta underneath, right? So I think Laporta can definitely. Laporta's going to have games where he catches multiple touchdowns this season, right?
For sure.
Like, this is not like, Sam Laporta.
He's not going to be Dalton Schultz. Like that.
Yeah. God.
Sam Laporta is going to be a top 5 tight end rest of the season, right? I'm not like.
I can give you 5 I like more. Can I give you 5 I like more?
For rest of season points per game,
Yeah.
sure for it. Okay.
Yeah,
Let's hear it.
McBride,
Yep.
Bowers,
Yep.
Kittle, Kincaid.
Yep.
Oh, missed me with Kincaid.
The
He's
utilization's
and then it gets a
good,
little-
but he's just not commanding targets at all. And I don't know. I worry about that. But
I mean, and then
the
it
routes are
gets
good. I
a
was
little
wrong about the
harder. Then
routes.
it gets a little harder.
Yeah.
Then it's probably like I'm squinting, trying to figure out which one of Laporta, Andrews, and Kelsey I'm going to take next. But the four, those four, I feel pretty good about scoring.
I can't do Kincaid, dude. He's exactly what I feared when Knox plays. I can't do it. I can't do Kincaid.
Knox
I'll give you fourth. I'll do fourth.
I will say on Kincaid, I didn't see exactly where the routes.
I've never been a Kincaid guy, but I think he's a great buy right now. I do.
Yeah, he's running the routes. That was my biggest fear. Is okay. Kincaid is going to be
need in the head.
68% route share. He's not going to be on the field enough with Knox. That's not been the case. He's running the routes. He's just not earning the targets. If you
he came out, he earned targets the first two plays, the first two passing plays in Thursday Night Football. They drew up first reads for Dalton Kincaid where they wanted to get him involved, and then he gets kneed in the head, misses a couple drives, gets evaluated for concussion, comes back, gets a couple more targets, but he had already missed basically the whole part of the game where Miami was pushing back. So I think that he would have had a really big game potentially against Miami. I'm excited for him the next couple of weeks. That would be the one tight end, like
it just
because I think right now, like to me, it's so clear right now from a dynasty perspective, like. And Sean Jeffers, I don't know, but we definitely all have love for Kittle. I think we all mentioned Kittle as a top 3 tight end rest of the season. But like McBride and Bowers, I think are right now look so clearly to be the top 2 in dynasty, at least for me, and for like most of the stuff that I'm seeing on Twitter is all kind of saying the same thing, that I think it's gonna be very hard to trade for them. To me, of the group that everybody's having a panic session on, Laporta, Kincaid, Kelsey, Andrews, Pitts, like the one guy that I can see it turning around for most easily is Kincaid. So if I could offload some, like, I don't know. I think if you're gonna go get McBride or Bowers today, my guess is it's going to be extremely painful to trade up from one of those other 5 to them. But I don't know that it is for Kincaid because people are down on him too. And I guess I'm less like resigned to sadness with him as I am to the other 4 guys.
Yeah, I agree on the Kincaid is like the one to buy part of the take. I don't know if I agree on I'm really confident Kincaid is outscoring Laporta rest of the season.
I'm not really confident in it. I'm not really
like,
confident in it. I can just squint and see how in 2 weeks I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm really glad I bought Dalton Kincaid. Whereas to me, the other guys are just like, I guess I hope I have a mid-range like tight end. Like I don't know. Like, is it?
Are you
sending
Laporta for Kincaid right now? I know you don't have any Laporta.
I sold like all of my Laporta this summer, but yeah, happily. Yeah. Like I'm gonna do a ranks update. I will have Dalton Kincaid ranked ahead of Sam Laporta in Dynasty.
I can't. Yeah, I just can't do that. I won't do that. No.
You got on the tight ends. My bad, Tom.
I also want to point out, because I feel like I have to, the whole bit with Sam Laporta was the tier down with a plus. You just weren't getting it. Like you weren't no one actually did that.
I thought Brock Bowers sat at night and dreamed of having the rookie season that Sam Laporta just had.
Yeah, and so far we're hoping. Like he's off to a good start. He's still got to finish. He's got to finish. But I also remember, like, the idea of the tier down from Laporta to player X, nobody was fucking doing that. Like, nobody actually did that because they all said, why would I pay up when I have guy A? That was the part that I was saying no to. I didn't draft any Laporta in round 2. So there you go.
I will say I was given the opportunity to tier down Laporta to McBride for like a third. And I was like, this is technically the optimal move to make probably. But I was just like, I'm not that motivated to do it. I don't have
exactly.
I'll keep it, and I'm kicking myself now. So yeah.
And I just want to
again.
I also want to point out, LB says JSN at wide receiver 12. You smoking some good stuff. I said at the end of the year, I can see JSN being the dynasty wide receiver 12 by the end of the year, which is what I said. Let's keep talking about Jameson Williams though, where this started. Yes. I think I'm going to believe to an extent. I think 19 points is kind of insane. And there was already a clear shift in how they wanted to play by the end of that game when it came down to it. I will say his targets and everything like that, like they are still using him doing crossers over the middle. Like he's not exactly just running deep posts every snap and getting the ball that way. So I think they're being very tactical with how they use him. Tight end play is just down. So I can absolutely see Sam Laporta coming back with 8 targets, 6 targets per game and getting red zone looks, which Dalton Kincaid won't get. And then, being back to his happy-go-lucky self per the rest of the year. But I believe the Jameson Williams things, the problem is price is going to be the best time to buy him is when we were telling you to get him in the 10th round. Like we said, sell when he was round 5, sell when he was round 6. And I said, buy at round 10, buy 10 and 11, perfect prices to go and buy. Because if it wasn't this year, it was never. That's what I'm going to get to at the end. After I let Lucas speak, because people tell us that I've already got a DM calling Lucas AJ Hawk since we've been live on this podcast. So we'll have to make sure Lucas gets to speak, or else people come at me in the YouTube comments. But I think I'm buying that he's finally like there's still some stuff he doesn't do super, like running through contact, and there's just some wide receiver stuff that he doesn't quite get. But this is a top offense, and he's the number 2 option right now. So I'm believing that. I think I'm going to be closer to that 12.5 to 14 by the end of the year. But I mean, let's see. Lucas.
I think the biggest thing for JMO is the fact that Josh Reynolds isn't in Detroit anymore. Like he has, as you all have talked about, he has that role on lockdown, I think. And so he's really being able to thrive in it. Detroit has brought him along very slowly. They've had a clear plan for how they want to use him. And it's really helped because that they've had other people who've been able to fill the roles that historically, and even whenever JMO was coming out, we didn't believe he was going to necessarily thrive in those roles in the NFL. He was crazy athletic, super fast player who's able to break games open, and Detroit has found ways to implement that in their offense. So good on them. I am looking to buy him. Now, if somebody is expecting a 19 points per game wide receiver cost, because that's a little insane, but I am definitely looking to buy him. I'm looking to move off players like, say, a Drake London or a DJ Moore, and trying to move off them to go and get a JMO in that sort of scenario. I don't know what, or
you would do
even
that straight?
if there is a plus anymore.
Wait, so
I'd
do you
be
do
really
that straight?
hard pressed to do straight.
London or Moore for Jameson straight?
I would want to do like Jameson in a third. That would make me at least feel a little better.
Right, I'm not buying Jameson Williams.
Yeah,
you're way in.
Williams.
Yeah. Lucas is.
I would definitely trade Jameson Williams in a third.
That's good to know. I'm starting to understand the market a little bit here too, because whenever we were talking about Chris Godwin, I was looking up some of the trades, and it's like I'm seeing Chris Godwin in a second for Drake London. I'm like, that seems a little strange. I don't know if I'd be able to pull that trigger, but at least with Jameson Williams, you still have that like week winning upside too. And plus on the younger side, so you're getting somebody who's in the same like generation, I guess, as like the Drake London type.
Can we have a 1 week reprieve from London hating? Like he got the touchdown.
I'm not trying to hate on him.
Like, can't we just keep the good vibes alive on
He
London
does
Island
provide
for 1 week?
So I traded Drake London and I think a third for Jahmyr Gibbs, and I was very happy with that. Neil Orphe wants to know if it's Garfield. Same breed of cat. Well, actually, no, it's the same breed of cat as Puss in Boots, but good eye. Sean Jeffers says AJ Hawk talking more than expected. Shout out for him. I wouldn't trade a first straight up for Jameson Williams today. I actually said no to that earlier today. So
depending on the first. If I was real confident that it was going to be
right, but this is where it's going to come down to, right? Like we said, sell for multiple years, and then he was the best investment when he was at its cheapest. Now his value is rising so quickly after 2 games.
Well,
for a guy that's more than likely at best, like his second, right, the second read in the offense, like sending a first for that, it's go cheaper and get Godwin, right? Like that's.
I don't think you want to be. I don't think his price yesterday should be the reason you don't buy today. Like I think that's fine if you're saying I don't believe he's that more than just the second read in this offense, and that kind of what we saw in week 1 and then trying to run it through him isn't going to happen going forward. Like that's fine if that's your reason for not buying, but I don't think it should be, well, I could have got him in the 10th round 3 weeks ago. Like I don't know.
I'm just saying it's a little more inefficient that way is what I'm saying.
But
like if you believed you were buying when he was at his cheapest, right? Even if it cost you a second and a little something, and now you finally saw it and you're rushing to go and buy. To me, that is like the ultimate no when like you should be early, not on time, is what I'm trying to say.
I disagree with this. I don't. This is like this is exactly what I wrote about last week, where it's like I think where I wrote like in defense of buying high and selling low. It's like sometimes we get information that changes things. Like the Jameson bet that we have now in front of us is different than the Jameson bet that we have in the summer. And that's not in any way taking credit away from people that were very early to the Jameson bet. Like you made a bet based on the information that you had at the time, and you were right. And you should celebrate that bet and then do with it whatever you please, hold, buy, sell, anything. But like now we have more information and the bet has changed. It's gotten meaningfully better. And I don't think that it's wrong where like, I definitely don't think that you shouldn't be trading based off of FOMO, right? Like if you're someone who had 0 Jameson, you shouldn't be rushing out now being like, oh my God, I got to get in on the Jameson business. Like, what can I pay? I just need to share. I need to share. I need to share. That's bad, right? Don't trade out of that. But like, I don't think you should sit there if you're in a situation where you were at market on Jameson or underweight on Jameson being like, oh no, like, I missed out at the best value. Now I can't ever get in. Like, some of the best dynasty investments that I've made have been players that I didn't draft enough of as rookies when they were very, very cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And Jameson, obviously third-year player, so different player. But where it was guys that I like, Puka Nacua is an example of like a player. Like I didn't really do anything with him as a rookie. He wasn't on my radar at all. But like he popped right away. And I was able to get some shares of him like very instantly after week 1 and week 2, where I was willing to buy high. Olave is another guy where like I wasn't in on him as a prospect either, but I bought high on him right away, week 1, week 2, week 3 of his rookie season. And then the price ends up going beyond that. The only thing that matters now, if you're looking to buy Jameson Williams, is not what he cost before. It's what's going to happen going forward. Is his production and his value going to be more valuable than the price you're paying today? And what his price was before doesn't change that. What he did before, you should consider, right? Like you should definitely treat, if Xavier Worthy had the first 2 games that Jameson Williams just had, I would value him astronomically higher than I'm valuing Jameson Williams because they came in his first 2 games and we don't have 2 years of him being useless. But that's about the range of outcomes going forward. It's not about the sunk cost. So, for sure. Point being, I think I'm in on Jameson. I'm in a weird spot where like I thought that I had 0. I legitimately checked my exposure tab because he's so irrelevant to me that I checked my exposure tab like after week 1 to be like, oh my God, like how am I going to get buried by this avalanche? And I found out that I have 4 shares that I was probably desperately trying to sell for like 2027 third all summer that nobody wanted. And now I still have them.
Right.
So I don't know. I turned down an offer of like the very likely 201. Dontavian Wicks and Tyjae Spears yesterday, which I thought that was like reasonable value, but I wanted to go bigger game hunting if I'm going to sell them. What, like any JMO trades in your guys' life?
So I want to pose one more half of this question because I really love what you just said. If you pay that first, because remember, trading first can make or break your dynasty team, right? Like if you move your first and it doesn't work out, you're fucked. We know this. Try going and trading for your pick back after something doesn't work in week 2. You might as well, like I always say, staple that kick me sign to your forehead. You're screwed. If he regresses back to like 11 points per game, are you still happy you'll move that first?
Of course not.
But that's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is like you do have to weigh that how in you are. And I just sent a trade for first. Let's see if I get him. I sent it live while you were talking. In that same league it was offered. I sent it back. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna go with all Jacob Sanderson here and the Galaxy Brain take. We're going to see what happens. We did it live on air because we're like that. We stand on business, right? We admit when we're wrong and we make the plays when we need to make them. All right. I'm standing on business. I'm a top 3 team in that league. Let's find out what happens. But yeah, any Jameson Williams trades in your guys' lives lately? How active?
Yeah, I'm going out
Nothing?
and trying to get a first right now. I guess I do have one Jameson Williams share I'm thinking of, and I might send that offer out.
Okay, so Ryan's
If
actually
you're-
selling for a first.
Here's well, I'm in on both of these. So on a particular, if I have a good team where I'm willing to make a bet, and I know that my first gonna be late, like, and now you actually do know a little bit more. If you're 4-0, you have a high value team, something like that, maybe you can go send it. If you're looking to sell Jameson for a first, I would just strongly recommend like sell for the 26 one at this point. Get yourself some upside because I don't suspect that a tanking terrible team in 2025 is going to trade you their first. If they do, press accept on that. But assuming that they don't, like, I don't think you're really getting that much. There's certainly, if you just straight up don't believe, then sure. But if you believe even a little bit, I don't think you're getting that much extra juice by getting a likely playoff team's first right now. What you're probably going to be doing is drafting a prospect wide receiver that'll probably be ranked in a similar value team to Jameson, but you lose out on the production. You lose out on some of the chance for it to go nuclear rocket ship. At least if you're going to take that shot, get yourself the floor of you have the first, it's not going anywhere, and get yourself the upside of it's the 102, right?
Yeah,
so go
agreed.
for the 26 first if you're going to make that move, in my opinion.
Agreed. Lucas is laughing. We have a question. You want JSN or Kincaid?
Tight end
Michelle
premium, I would
Shetty.
take Kincaid. In non-tight end premium, I would take JSN.
Okay. We want McBride or Kincaid and Jameson. I'll take Kincaid and Jameson.
That's a fun one. I'll take Kincaid and Jameson. Would you take? What if we swapped out McBride for Bowers? Anybody? You want to take the Bowers side there? I'll take the Bowers side.
I might take the McBride side, honestly, just the way it is. That is tough, but yeah, I know like the right thing to do is
you
to
hate
K.
Drake
Jameson.
London.
Wait, what does Drake London have to do with this?
Well, because he said he would trade Jameson for Drake London straight up, and now he's talking about he would trade Drake London Kincaid. Close enough, Lucas. That's close enough.
Also,
Drake
when
London
my
is
name
two
changed?
entirely
Yes, I
different
need to know
dynasty
this.
assets. Like
somebody
there are
finally
people that like Drake London, and there are people for him he is nothing. And like depending on who you talk to, you can't apply any sort of universal currency to Drake London. Like he is either Drake London, like sub-elite young dynasty wide receiver, or Drake London. He is not remotely different to me than Alec Pierce. Like those are the two ways that he is viewed.
I'm just glad someone finally caught that I changed his name to AJ Hawk during the show.
That?
A while ago.
Yeah.
I'm slick with it. I got that name change in there real quick. Last break, a couple running backs and player picks because this is going to go 2 hours like it did a couple weeks ago. But you guys are dope. You're sticking with us. We love y'all. We'll be right back. I mean, if you made it this long, you might as well hit that like, subscribe, leave a comment. You guys are still rocking with us. We have more viewers now than when we started the show. You guys are loving it, and we're loving that you are here with us. A couple weeks ago, we talked about and last week, we talked about some running back rooms that were frustrating. We have the answer in Denver. We don't really have to go over it. Javonte is going to be like the only worthwhile piece there, it looks like right now, and like even that is not great. At least for now. He finally caught some passes this week, which is kind of dope, but the 6'5" scat back wasn't in the lineup, so we'll see what happens when he's back. Marvin Mims is dead. I just want to point that out. He got one catch versus prevent defenses on 2 targets. Dead. He's done.
Troy Franklin got more snaps.
Yeah, Troy Franklin. Hopefully he continues to produce. Yeah, Sean Jeffers actually was the first one to catch the name change. So shout out. I'll give you your name back, Lucas. There you go, AJ Hawk.
That was a good bet.
All right. I want to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers backfield because it just got interesting. Like Darkwing Duck would say, let's get dangerous. That's
Rachaad White things.
Right. He is really bad. 72.3% of the snaps, though. 10 carries with a 43.5% rush share, 15 routes on 27 dropbacks. So we like that. A 5.1% target share. He had 1 target. Rushed 10 for 18 yards with 1 catch and 5. Bucky, though, didn't look tremendously better in terms of his stat line, but the snaps are starting to creep away. 7 carries, a 30% rush share compared to 43. It's already starting to turn. He had the 7 carries, 5 routes run on 27 dropbacks. So, guys, It's slowly already starting to happen. I said week 6. We were talking on the podcast not long ago. I've been saying that in the Discord. I think it might be before week 6, and now Rachaad White is injured. What are we taking away from this backfield?
Well, is he seriously injured? He came back in the game and seemed like he played.
Yeah, I think
snaps.
he's okay.
I think he's going to be fine.
I saw a report today where he was nicked up. That's on me. That's
well,
on me.
he suffered a groin injury in the game, but he did return. I mean, you never know, but I think we expect him to play next week. I just I can't watch this guy run anymore, man. Like I'm just so sick and tired of watching Rachaad White.
Is this panic sell? Like, are we panic selling now?
I don't know. I don't
panic sell for what though? What are you?
If you get a 2, are you taking it?
Like probably, maybe.
I think so. Yeah.
I don't know if I am. Like, so here's like last year, this kind of started where it was like Rachaad White looked like garbage early on, and he wasn't even producing, and he was like the expected fantasy points guy. And then what happened is that no one actually took his job, and he just stayed in his job, and he caught a bunch of passes, and it actually was fine. And then he rose in value, and like that is a plausible way this goes. Like It's one thing when we were talking about Rachaad White being like a 3rd, 4th round redraft pick, and I was like, you do not want to bet your 3rd, 4th round redraft pick on this bad running back holding off a rookie all season. But I don't know if I could only toss like a late 2nd in Dynasty and manage to get Rachaad White on my team and just bet that he's going to last the rest of this season and maybe beyond. Like the one thing he has for him is he has pass catching ability, right? We saw that in week 1 where he rushed like garbage, but he ended up still being a very good start because he's a genuinely good receiving back. So I don't know. I can't get my head inside what a Rachaad White manager thinks and does, but I suspect I would probably still be trying to get an early 2, but I'd probably just wait until he hopefully like gets his ass in the end zone a couple times and then try to panic sell instead of doing it right off of his worst game. Like I don't think Bucky's just coming out and getting 70% of the snaps next week, right? It's probably going to be a little bit more gradual. So don't you think Rachaad White probably has a good fantasy performance at some point before it fully turns?
I haven't looked at maybe need.
Are you guys going to be the Rachaad White bowl on this fucking show? Like, Jesus Christ!
Like, so I have some Rachaad White, and I've been trying to sell him for.
I can't sell him
all of last year. I was trying to sell him for literally any first, like give me any first, and I couldn't make that happen. Would I love to take an early 2nd right now for the? I don't know if you guys have certain leagues where there's just like one player in that league you can't sell no matter what you do. I have like a Rachaad White share in one
type of Loa
that's been like that. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, he probably I mean he's been playing in the red zone, I believe. Bucky has not been involved like in terms of running routes at all. So yeah, I mean as long as that stays the case, then yeah, White has the path to like a decent weekly fantasy performance. But as soon as Bucky Irving is running like a 35% route share to White's 40% or whatever, it's Jover. Like that's when it's done, is when we see the routes come up for Bucky. And do I think it's next week or the next couple weeks? Maybe not. But yeah, I think week 6 or week 7 is a plausible time for this to be like a 50-50 backfield, and that being how everyone views it.
I've got the player you need to send Rachaad White to for a second. Find that sick, degenerate bastard in your league that's out there starting Rico Dowdle and Chase Brown because they're 0 RB boys, and go pry a second for Rachaad White because they're going to look at his
statistics. Those are all my teams, Tom.
Hold on. They're going to sit there and they're going to actually think he's a wide receiver because he catches passes like a wide receiver and doesn't run like a running back. You can disguise Rachaad White to those sickos for a second.
I don't think that's actually true. I think the 0 RB sickos are ideologically opposed to the Rachaad White play. I think you have to find whatever someone in your league, hopefully, who's an RB bro, and just watch Pacheco go down to injury and just watch Mixon go down to injury. One. That's the guy who I think might toss, like somewhere out there is a guy that's like, I gotta get Rachaad White. Maybe I'll give you a 27-2 and a 26-3 for Rachaad White, maybe even a couple fab dollars on top. But it's The only running back worse than Rachaad White right now, that's actually the lead back for a team, DeAndre Swift, who's just
zero. He's a zero.
I've never had any expectations for. I've had the low, like DeAndre Swift is just our expectations were low, but holy fuck sign. Like all I wanted from you, DeAndre Swift, was just to look just like the slightest little bit of mediocre in what I thought was going to be a good offense. And you could probably hold the job that you were paid $24 million for one season. But he might not make it through the month. That was just
terrible.
Pitiful.
I said it last week. He's a Dynasty zero. You said you liked the role doesn't matter. The dude sucks. He's got to be the worst running back in the NFL, right? He's might be worse than Rachaad White actually running the football. Truly disgusting. I think we have the winner of the Bengals backfield. This is the last backfield I want to talk about before we quickly do player picks. The other backfields I think are pretty tough. We know Braylon Allen's not actually going to eat into Breece Hall. I had that listed. The only thing I'll say about the Colts one, and maybe Jacob, you have a little bit of point in this.
Oh God.
JT didn't play in the fourth, and they said it was game script. Is he actually hurt? What is this? Is this voodoo magic? He was injured. You have a better beat on the Colts.
I wrote about this. I've been asked about this on several occasions. It's inexplicable and it's embarrassing. My conspiracy theory, which I don't even, it's not true. Don't listen to me. It's just the only thing that I have come up with in my mind is that. So for people who didn't watch this game, which shout out to you, you had a better Sunday than I did. Jonathan Taylor is playing great the whole game. He's the only thing that's working on the Colts. He's averaging 9.6 yards per touch, has 135 yards. On this drive in the late third, he has an 18-yard screen pass. He follows that up with a 29-yard run. Then he gets another run. They get it down to a 3rd and 1. He comes off the field for that play. He's tired. The quarter ends. So we have a full 3 minutes. Shane Steichen gets to pick any play he wants. Presumably, he can pick any personnel grouping he wants because they've just had a big rest. They come out 3rd and 1. They run speed option left to Trey Sermon. They lose 3 yards on that play, which was probably the median outcome. And then they kick a field goal and they miss. At the time, it was 13-3. If they convert that, they score a touchdown, they get the 3 points. They're totally in the game. After that, Taylor doesn't play a snap for the rest of the game, including a drive when they get it back down 13 with 11 minutes left, where you're probably not running the ball, but it's at least conceivable. My harebrained theory is that Taylor was just so angry about not being in the game on the 3rd and 1 that he yelled at Shane Steichen and said some sort of rude thing about his family, and then he was benched. Because I don't understand what else happened. They asked Steichen about it after the game. He doesn't elaborate at all. They're he's oh yeah, it was a decision we made. It was game script, whatever. Elaborates on it a little bit more the next day. He says we were planning to pass the ball, so that was why we didn't have him in there.
Which doesn't make sense, by the way, because Taylor was running all the routes in week 1.
Yeah.
And had 90%.
Something I think I'm on the tinfoil hat train. I think something was said.
Right. That's the thing. It's it wasn't how they played it. They were down 9 for most of the second half on their drives in week 1. They let Taylor play. And then they had a press conference, or they showed up in the locker room. They asked Taylor a bunch of questions after the game. And he was so heated. And he was practically yelling. And he's not normally like this. And they're what's wrong? He was we need accountability. We need to have urgency at practice. We don't practice hard enough. It was very much I'm mad at the coach vibes. So something is rotten down there in the state of Denmark. I don't necessarily expect it to carry over, but I just thought that was something was off about that. It didn't make any sense. It got to the point that the announcers, Fox was doing the game. They have the sideline reporter walk down to the Colts sideline, ask the medical staff if he's hurt. And then we have to go live to the sideline reporter. Oh yeah, I just talked to Jonathan Taylor. He says he's okay. It's embarrassing when your personnel decisions are so perplexing that the broadcast assumes that you're lying about an injury.
Yeah.
And they have to go and cover that coming back from commercial. That means you're just a fucking idiot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. That's why I wanted to get it, because I couldn't figure it out. I spent all day trying to figure it out. It made no sense to me, but I do want to talk about the Bengals backfield because I think they both suck. I think we sat here wanting to know who was it on the Bengals that you actually needed? Well, let's look at it. 83.6% of the snaps and 24 routes on 41 dropbacks for Zach Moss so far. That's 58.5% of dropbacks and a 2.8% target share. All right. The result is 12 for 34. Chase Brown, 16.4% of the snaps, 18.2% of the rushes, 4 routes run on 41 dropbacks, 0% target share, 4 for 31 rushing. You know what this got you last week? 5.7 points from Zach Moss, 3.1 points from Chase Brown. The answer? Neither of them. They suck. Zach Moss is your typical plotter that needs to fall into the end zone. The Bengals can't run the goddamn football. None of them. Neither of them. They both suck. Chase Brown sucked. I don't know. It's garbage. Does anyone else? The only thing I'll say for a takeaway
Stay
for this
tuned for player picks.
Yeah. The only thing I can say about this is Zach Moss hasn't been good enough to pull away from them potentially giving Chase Brown more work because he has been so bad. So this can shift. Doesn't look like they want to. So I don't know what to do to take away from this. I mean, they get Washington, which is why I'm assuming you're playing Zach Moss for player picks. Yeah. But they get Washington
that's
and Carolina. So
short term, Zach Moss is trending up, and he has this great role, and he gets an incredible matchup this week. Long term, like Zach Moss is doing Zach Moss stuff. So if you are a Chase Brown talent truther, you can probably like talk yourself into maybe he gets a chance over time because they want something more explosive. My fear, and this was like why I was in on Chase Brown at a speculative price, but then was pretty out on Chase Brown when his price got really high towards the end of draft season, was like, we all know what Zach Moss is. He's not good, but he is reliable, and he'll pass protect well, and he'll get you what's there and not anything more. And Chase Brown is not those things. So he needs to give you a reason to play him. He needs to give you a reason to sacrifice reliability. And right now, small sample, hasn't done it yet. And I haven't seen anything from him as a college player, NFL player that suggests that that's what he's going to do. So I don't think it's like a spot where they're playing this bad running back and there's some incredible talent behind him. It's like they're playing one deficient back who's deficient in one way, and they could play another running back who's deficient in another way. And I don't really agree or disagree with what they're choosing to do, because I think they're just choosing to make running back not matter versus embracing mistakes. Clearly Chase Brown's a more explosive player, but I just don't think he's necessarily bringing you so much more of the whole package that it's worthwhile. So they might just keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree.
I just want to say I'm really mad I fell for the Chase Brown psyop.
Me too.
I was completely.
Yep. I'm sorry. That's my fault.
Yeah. I was ready to give stick on like the football guy take. If he can't pass protect, he's never going to see the field. And then the team and every beat reporter was coming out and calling him the RB1. I shrugged my shoulders. Okay, his price isn't reflecting that. Let's kind of get on the Chase Brown train here. Nope. Yeah, complete psyop.
It's legit weird, man. Like,
it's my fault.
How often do beat reporters ever act this way about like the not boring player? Right? Like normally beat reporters defer too much to the boring player, and that usually gets proven to not necessarily be the case early season. I can't remember a recent scenario like this where the beat reporters have been so bullish about a young player being ahead of a veteran player than to just instantly be wrong. Like I'm surprised by this. Like I got a little bit nervous about the Chase Brown when he was getting drafted ahead of like running backs I actually think are good, but I'm still very surprised at how wide the gap was going to be. 80% snap rate for Moss in that game. I didn't see that coming in week 2. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'll take the L. I apologize. I was in Ryan's DMs too often in the Chase Brown trade. I told everyone else to draft him. That's on me. I'm still hoping for like one good game where like, I don't know.
Handcuff.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm panic selling for any third. Any third, you can have him. Free off my rosters. Any third and like 5 fab. He's all yours. Take him. I'm out. I'm completely out. So
he might still end up being the most traded player in Dynasty. That's why my hot take was because I thought he would be at least decent. Maybe it's just everybody selling off of him. So
yeah, for anything you can. All right. I think that's it for backfields, unless you guys want to just mention anything else. You have any backfields, anything you want to look for in week 3? I think that's a pretty resounding no.
If you want way too many words on backfields, I know a good weekly article that talks about that on a website called Thinking About Thinking.
Yeah, that's where you want to be. Just seriously can't get over that Javonte Williams was the only player with 14 and a half weighted opportunities and the only one that didn't crack like 12 points. I like that. To me, it took me a day to really like let that register. Kind of insane.
Like this is gonna come off as bag defending because it is. But like I mean, Javonte looked obviously pretty putrid as a runner and fine as a receiver. But even that notwithstanding, Sean Payton is just like what he's doing with the running game, where it's like, oh, we take our receiving tight end off the field and we put our blocking tight end on the field and we call halfback dive exactly where everybody knows it's gonna like. It's
bad.
I don't know what happens to some of these coaches, man. Like somewhere along the way, these coaches used to be innovators, and like, how is it that like someone like, right? Because it's not like Sean Payton's been stupid all along, right? I know people will be like, "Oh, it was all Drew Brees," whatever. It's not. That's not the case. Like, yes, he had Drew Brees, and yes, that was incredible. But like, Sean Payton was introducing a lot of new things into football 15, 20 years ago that other teams weren't doing, and it was great, and it was fantastic, and he was legitimately one of the best offensive coaches of this century. And as bad as he's been with the Broncos, it's not going to take away from how impressive he was with the Giants and then with the Saints. But like, what the fuck, man? Like, at what point do these coaches that at one point in their lives worked so hard to come up with these tiny little edges, to come up with new things, like when does the switch flip where they're just like, I found it. This is my offense. There's nothing that can counter this. I'm going to run my offense and nothing's going to change. Like, because we just keep seemingly seeing it with these different coaches, whether it be Chip Kelly, whether it be Sean Payton, where it's like these guys that have some sort of edge, that have some sort of innovative scheme, just refuse to deviate off of whatever their thing is. And it's so incongruent with whatever their mindset was that brought them to being successful in the first place. Like, what happened to your intellectual curiosity, Sean Payton? I don't know. It's just he sucks. The Broncos suck, and everything sucks.
I was led to believe that he would actually be a good coach because the Saints somehow tricked the Broncos into sending them a first and second round pick for Sean Payton in the third. So he was equivalent to a first round pick player on a rookie contract whenever they knew they were going to get rid of 79 or however many millions of dollars in dead cap. And
man,
here
insane.
we are.
And then Sean Payton tricked himself into thinking they tricked everyone else by letting everyone know that they made a mistake letting him get Bo Nix. Because if this is what your thought process was for that, Jesus Christ. Brutal.
So
look,
I was expecting
is this now what? Four or five first round picks in total now for Sean
for
Payton,
what we
Russell
have
Wilson,
now.
and Bo Nix?
Yeah.
It's so brutal.
I'm sorry,
and
Lucas.
he
I'm sorry,
was
buddy.
so cocky about it too.
I know.
Like
I'm sorry, buddy.
The Broncos were so cocky this offseason. They're like, you know what? We are doing some really smart things here. All right. We're not going to win this season, but we're going to look good in our losses and everybody will be excited. And we're going to have this awesome offense because it's my players. And this is what we get.
I didn't have Lucas Tangent on my bingo card tonight.
I don't know. Like Bleacher Report puts out the little, like report cards for how your team did in the offseason, what you're expecting. I'm seeing like 25% A and like over 60% B range. So I don't know. He got me to say I believe on this show 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I have to live with that.
That's embarrassing. I'm going to clip that. You just reminded me of that. I'm sorry. I'm going to clip that
Broncos
with this rant and call it a day.
Super Bowl like 9 years ago.
That's disturbing. Absolutely
disturbing. That right there kept me going for years. Years. I knew that Peyton was gone. All right. I understand this. I know that my Lord and Savior, he moved on.
We
he
see
moved
the
on
room.
to other things.
Like for the video listeners, we can see the memorabilia. Yes. We understand. We know you're in pain. That's we understand. Last
I'm
player picks.
I'm mad at myself more than I'm mad at Sean Payton. Like I fell for.
I'm mad at Sean Payton.
You should have listened. Just saying.
And I'm mad at myself for doing it.
At least you stopped being in at RB17 Javonte like halfway through I saved you from that.
That's true.
at
Did you
least we
guys?
got
By the
there.
way, I wrote up that big rant in my Sunday night piece that I titled "Sean Payton's Very Bad No Good Day," and it made "Pardon My Take" the "Pardon My Take" podcast on Barstool Sports. Read out
Really?
my Sean Payton rant verbatim.
Send that to me. That's awesome. We got to post that from the Dynasty Points account. That's amazing. Shout out. Remember us when you get that big. Quick break, player picks. We get out of here. Then this 2 hour and 15-minute long podcast. Sit tight. I love this show. I mean, I really mean it. I really mean it. This show is awesome. I can honestly, truly say there's none like it. If you're not familiar with player picks, this is what we do. This is a Dynasty show, but we need something to brag about. So each week we pick players outside of the top quarterback, outside of the top 15, running back outside of the top 15, wide receiver outside of the top 30, and tight end outside of the top 12. We total those points up, and the winner at the end of the year gets to pick the drinks of choice for the other people during the live draft stream. Jacob got off to an astounding lead, came back down to earth last week. He's still in the lead with 132.36. I had a hell of a week, came back with 99.32 total. Lucas is at 76.46 and Ryan at 62.94. I was caught accidentally trying to cheat today and was looking at half point. We do this by full PPR. So let's start with let's go in reverse order. Ryan, who do you got?
All right. So quarterback, a little bit of a tough week, as we've talked about a lot of the quarterback play today. We'll say there's a clear advantage if you're one of the first two people to get into this sheet and pick who either Thomas or Lucas did this week, I would say. But going Kirk Cousins, obviously, I don't think he's right. Like there were so many throws the other night that it's kind of weird to watch that from Kirk Cousins. It was better than week one. Actually. Yeah. So we'll say continue the upward trajectory from week 1 to week 2 to week 3. At least there's a chance for a shootout with Kansas City. Running back, Zach Charbonnet against the Dolphins. If he's going to play 95% of the snaps, like I'm going to play Zach Charbonnet. We're going to go Rashid Shaheed against Philadelphia. Obviously, the Saints offense is rolling. Shaheed back-to-back 50-plus yard touchdowns. The schematic matchup, I guess, isn't amazing. Philly doesn't play as much zone as the last two teams. But, I think in this role, Shaheed could be more than just like a zone beater, big play guy. So we'll have to see. And then tight end is just totally dead. We're going for maximum routes with Colby Parkinson against the 49ers.
Yep, I like that. I will say on the Kirk Cousins thing, because we didn't get to talk about it much today. Did anyone else feel like when after the Mooney touchdown, he stopped worrying about his foot? Like it really felt like even on that last drive, he actually kind of looked like Kirk Cousins, where he was kind of stepping into those throws down the side. Like they were picking on the rookie or whatever, which is fine. But it kind of felt like he didn't care about his foot during those last 2 drives. So maybe this is, a little bit mental as well. Maybe.
Well, that last drive especially, I thought was exactly what he needed. I mean, at that point, right, you're doing the hurry up. There's no time to think, right? There's no time to worry about what's this new offense that I'm in? Is my foot okay? You're just reading and reacting and you're going. And I thought that was exactly the situation that he needed. It seemed like he got out of his own head. He delivered the ball beautifully that entire drive. And yeah, I mean, you watch this outside throws. Is he going to mistake anybody for Anthony Richardson out there? Not exactly on the velocity, but he's never really been known for his arm strength. And he's always still managed to be a very good, efficient NFL quarterback just by being accurate, by making the right reads. I got more optimistic over the course of that game. The major key, though, for him, and especially for any Atlanta receiving weapon, is that going to be a signal to the team to get more optimistic? Because minus 11% pass rate over expectation week 1, they come in minus 9% week 2. That's like putting a hard cap on the ceiling of London and makes basically everybody else borderline unstartable. So other than Bijan, obviously. So hopefully we get to see the team buy in to Kirk Cousins a little bit more.
Yeah, I just thought that drive looked really good. And I wanted to see some of those deep shots go to London, but let's face it, they literally put London on that left side to pick on him near the goal line, and then he beat Slay. Like, they were obviously going after the rookie. Lucas, who do you got?
So I went with the theme of trying to take a player from you all and throw them into my lineup as best as I could. So I went with Sam Darnold as a shout out to Thomas going up against Houston. I still like the matchup. Throwback for Jacob, got Tony Pollard going up against Green Bay, and he's been dominating the red zone work. And then because I couldn't do Jalen Waddle and I didn't want to do Zach Charbonnet, I did Jonnu Smith with Miami as just like a throw to Miami for Ryan. Wasn't perfect, but I tried Ryan. And then wide receiver, I don't know. I thought that wide receiver was really gross this week, and I couldn't find anybody that like I was excited about. So I'm going with Demarcus Robinson for the Rams. Just they got to throw the ball to somebody. Maybe they just decide to run the ball a lot, but yeah, that's going to be my lineup for this week.
All right, Jacob, you have to go because I just realized I have the same receiver as Ryan.
Nice. The battle over Rachaad. For the record, I also want.
Wait, did you have that? I went after you. Did I mess up?
Yeah, it's fine. I'll change it. I'll change mine.
No, if I stole it.
I noticed that right away because I was planning, of course, to pick Rachaad Shaheed because who wouldn't? And then I noticed that both Tom and Ryan had already picked Rachaad Shaheed, and I was curious to see who was going to get that one off first. I will be taking Caleb Williams. Which is not a fun thing to say, but I have been too busy writing to have watched his quarterback school video yet. So I will regret this in 2 hours and 5 minutes.
It's not good.
The quarterback school Patreon. But why am I picking Caleb Williams? Because what happens when an unmoving object goes against a, I don't know, what's the name for like a force that can't stop anything? Just nothing. Just goes against literally fucking nothing. That's what Gus Bradley and the Colts defense is. They don't have very many good defensive players to start with, but they have now lost Samson Ebicom, their best pass rusher. They've lost DeForest Buckner, their best player. They've lost Juju Brents, their best outside corner. And both Kwity Paye and Laiatu Latu are also injured and are questionable for week 3. So I don't think they're going to have much of an issue getting on track here in this game. In the Dome against the hapless Indianapolis Colts defense. I'm going with Zach Moss, who sucks, but he gets the Washington Commanders, and he apparently is going to get 80% of the snaps. And I think that we saw a running back who sucks getting 80% of the snaps against the Commanders pay off last week in Devin Singletary, and I picked him. So why don't I just keep doing that with Zach Moss?
Just attack the Commanders.
Yeah, I'm gonna attack them with bad running backs who get snaps. I'm gonna double down on how bad the Colts are with Rome Odunze, bringing it back with Caleb Williams. He gets to attack Jalen Jones. There's one of those charts that I saw earlier with cornerbacks, and it was like their yards per run given up or something with their coverage grade, and Jalen Jones was like breaking the chart with just being absolutely putrid. And he's probably the better of the two outside corners for the Colts right now. So I think it's going to be a nice week for Rome Odunze. And then Mike Gesicki, 9 targets, 7 catches, 91 yards from Mike Gesicki, one of my old Flames. I played him in DFS this week opposite Rashee Rice. It was truly enjoyable sweating him, seeing if he get in the 100-yard bonus all night. He also gets to take advantage of the Washington Commanders defense. I think we might have one more week without T. Higgins. And Mike Gesicki just seems to be the number 2 target, maybe the number 1 target in that offense right now. So give me Gesicki.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I hate you. Yeah, damn. I might have picked the wrong tight end. I was in here before you. I'm going big because I got to catch up. I got to every week. We just have to, win the battle of attrition and just matriculate the ball downfield and slowly outscore Jacob every week to catch up. I'm going Geno Smith, my GOAT, my late round quarterback daddy. We're going Geno Smith versus Miami. I think they can get out early. I'm going Brian Robinson Jr. versus Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati's run defense is beatable. B-Rob just has the role. He is the dude in every aspect, so I like that. I pivoted receiver to Jerry Jeudy, who seems to be the only receiver in Cleveland that can catch a fucking ball.
Cooper
looks dead. And he is dropping passes.
Is Cooper toast?
Sorry, Amari Cooper. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it over? Is it Jover?
You were fucking tweeting, weren't you?
I wasn't tweeting. I was DMing with Scott. Anyway.
Damn it, Barrett.
Ask him if Amari Cooper's washed.
I'll ask him that. I think his answer might be yes. His separation metrics and stuff look awful. Is my understanding. I haven't.
That was
sat
basically
down
what I
and
wanted
watched
to
the
know. I
Amari
wanted to go
Cooper
under the
tape,
hood,
but yeah, the
let me know
ass
if the engine
is
was
not
corroded.
good for Amari Cooper right now.
Ass is
But
bad
I mean,
for Amari Cooper.
the expected fantasy points are kind of incredible for Amari Cooper. So
Right.
I don't know which way you want to take it, but
Okay.
yeah.
Tale of two
I would
tapes.
say like a 5 out of 10 on like the he might be washed panic scale for me right
Well, I know who's not washing that offense, and it's Jerry Jeudy, who has 11.5 points and 12.5 points, which in this game would do wonders for me. And I'm going with the human target machine with Jacoby Brissett and Hunter Henry. The only weapon they choose to use, except for I like the poke touchdown. So the poke touchdown was good. But yeah, he's the only guy with that has the heart of Jacoby Brissett. Like he's just him.
Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki going absolutely ham on Sunday it felt like we were back in like 2019. Like
I
that
know.
was like
When they were
like
both
what
top
the hell are
12
we
Dynasty
watching? Like
tight
we're just watching Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki just spam like 4-yard targets repeatedly.
All we needed was like an Austin Hooper 5-catch game. We really would have went back in time with the old top 12 of the Dynasty tight ends. Just truly remarkable. So that's it. That's the show for today. What an absolute marathon. If you guys keep liking these shows, we're going to keep hitting you with as much information as we possibly can because, like I said, you guys have been showing up in droves. Our live audience has been phenomenal. If you're listening to this via podcast and you're still here, we absolutely love you all. Again, just continuing hammering that download. I got a bonus episode from Dynasty 101 from Jacob that we're going to release later in the week to the Dynasty Points only feed. You're going to be want to be locked into. Jacob, you've got more thinking about thinking?
Yeah, we wrote normally I write an intro to my Hitchhiker's Guide piece on Sunday night, and then I write the rest of it on Monday night. And then my intro was so long that I thought that nobody would actually read the Hitchhiker's Guide. So I released the intro as a standalone piece on Monday morning. And that's more of a look at my thoughts on why the NFL is so difficult to watch right now. If you like game theory stuff, I talk about whether we're reaching a Nash equilibrium and pass rate over expectation. And then I wrote the Hitchhiker's Guide up, released that this morning, went through all the utilization stuff. I will have the streamer stock watch up probably on Friday. I'm going to have a full Dynasty ranks update. Full disclosure, the plan was tonight. I didn't expect we were going to record 2 hours and 16 minutes. So it might be tomorrow night on the Dynasty ranks update. And then I'll get a Dynasty 101 thing out there as well.
I got to do one of those Dynasty rank updates too. God damn. Ryan?
Yeah. What day is it? God, today's Tuesday, right? So Friday night, you can catch us right here with myself and Jake Tribby on Fantasy Points YouTube channel. The Underdog Drafter Party. If you play DFS or if you like drafting on Underdog, you're going to like Underdog Battle Royale. Really fun game. A lot softer than DFS. Lots of prize pools to be won. Highly recommend checking that out. And then Advanced Matchups drops Friday mornings. That's just digging into the Fantasy Points data suite and looking for schematic angles for your DFS lineups for your prop bets. So yeah, check that out on fantasypoints.com.
Hey, people are loving it too. We're getting a ton of subs through that show alone. So if you're not wanting an edge, I mean, you got to be out of your mind. Lucas?
Right now I've been doing Fantasy War for Fantasy Points. It is back. Dropped the update this morning really early. So we got 2 weeks of data on that. Have 2 Fantasy War articles out right now. We will see if I can get a third out this week. Doing lots of traveling, but also then working on some lineup optimizers, mainly right now on the college football side. Those have been dropping exclusively in the Discord. So far, they have been winning people money, so make sure you are getting into the Discord for that. Have even more lineups that are now going to be coming out not only on Friday, but also on Saturday for all of the game slates, and still working on some prop bet stuff, but that's later to come. So lots of things cooking right now.
Lucas, are we going to win it this weekend or what?
We better win it this weekend, dadgummit. If we don't, I am going to be so upset. This room will be on fire if we do not win it this weekend. And if we win by 50, it might still be on fire. So I might have to be broadcasting from a different location. We shall see next week. It's going to be nuts. It's arguably the second most important road game we've had in the last decade, with Georgia 2 years ago being the most important. One of the biggest storylines of college football season, though. Oklahoma's first
It's
SEC
the
game
of the
and Josh
week.
Heupel going back. Yeah.
I must say, my typical Devi/C2C strategy of being a homer because I don't know enough players, really paying off this year. I drafted Dylan Sampson like 7 rounds ahead of ADP in several different leagues because I didn't consult an ADP source first, and I just thought he was the truth. And then I felt really dumb when I looked at consensus ADP, and the ADP was fucking dumb. How about that? Because he scores like 4 touchdowns every single week, and he's the GOAT.
Unbelievable. For myself, my second article for Fantasy Points Ever should be going up. 2 players that you should buy high and 2 players you should sell low. It should be going up sometime this week. I'm sure that's not going to get met with some fierce opinions, but I'm here for it. I'm ready for it. Happy to provide you more content. And please go read Herms's new article that dropped on fantasypoints.com. This man had such a creative concept. He and I worked through this thing. He basically introduced the 3 true outcomes of baseball into fantasy football and applied it to Anthony Richardson as to why he is the, as Joe Dolan put, Adam Dunn of fantasy football.
That's a really good. That's a great concept. Yeah.
It is up now. If you haven't read it, go and read it. It is a truly unique idea, which is very hard to do in this fantasy space. So please check that out. I'll link that over to you, Jacob. It is a must read, in my opinion. It is very creative. I truly mean that because, like I said, and I keep saying, I promise Dynasty content, and it's coming every single week. More and more and more and more. We're here. It's our season, regardless if it's redraft or best ball, whatever. It's always Dynasty. I love this show. I love all of you. I love the co-hosts. We'll be back next week. As always, remember that clear eyes and full hearts can never lose in your best days. Goddamn, they're always spent tilting. Good night, everybody.
What?
Why are you shaking your head? You're welcome.